IB Nation, welcome back to the Irish Breakdown Podcast. We are live here on a Friday, which of course means the little Notre Dame recruiting hour talk. Sean, funny enough, man, earlier in the week, I was trying to figure out some topics for today's podcast. That's Sean Davis, by the way, co-host of the Lucky Lefty podcast. You can find him on YouTube on the Lucky Lefty podcast channel. You can also follow him on CFB Nation on any and all of your favorite podcast platforms. Him and Mr. Midleague Zaire spin it. I hear you guys spin it differently over there, Sean. That's the word on the street. So you guys can check out Sean's content over there. Sean, earlier in the week, it was like Tuesday. I sat down. I'm like, man, I wonder what we're going to talk about this week. We'll get an interview in, and we have a great interview in store for you guys later today, by the way. Make sure you tune into the second section of this podcast. But obviously, got word earlier in the week, around that time, Mr. Dominik Hulak, who is a 2025 defensive end linebacker out of Elmhurst, Illinois, in Immaculate Conception. Almost forgot the name of his high school, for crying out loud. I'm rusty here, Sean. Made his commitment, though, this morning publicly to commit to the University of Notre Dame. Also had offers from schools like Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, Purdue, among others. So obviously, the first section of this podcast is going to be dedicated to talk about Mr. Dominik Hulak, talk about a little bit of the backstory to how we got here, talk a little bit about some of just the fit into the class, obviously, and then we'll talk about what's next for it, and we'll throw some film on as we're talking through this as well. We have an interview coming up. Sean Sevano Jr., defensive tackle out of the state of Florida in the 2024 class, who just finished up a dynamic season, to say the least, down there in Clearwater. And then we'll hit the mailbag at the end. So at any point in this podcast, you should like the podcast, of course. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, all that good stuff. But if you have any questions for us during the mailbag section, just throw in questions in the chat, mailbag or MB before the question to help us distinguish what is a question and what is genuinely not. But Sean, we got to start here. And it's perfect that you're on this podcast because, of course, you're my resident Illinois guy. You're my resident Chicago man. So I remember when we were talking about the fact that Dominik Hulak was committed to the University of Notre Dame. And even way before this, I remember because this past pot of gold during St. Patrick's Day, when he was offered, Christopher Burgess was offered, Nate Marshall was offered, Taylon Taylor was offered, a lot of kids in the Chicago area. We talked at that point about, like, dang, man, it's one talented group of some Illinois recruits in the 2025 class. But I'm excited to get you on, man, to talk about Dominik Hulak, because I think, and I'll always tell everyone exactly how I feel about a player and exactly how I feel about a situation. And I will be honest with y'all, there was some reservation with this one from myself until I saw his junior film. And then I'm like, oh, okay, we're good there. We're good there. There's a guy near you, Sean, and seems like a good get early on for Notre Dame, in my opinion, who could fit into multiple areas.
Yeah. I've been in conversation leading up to this, just like watching the playoff games, going to a couple of playoff games, talking to coaches, suburbs in the city, and his name would always pop up, right? Because I do my own poll, and I talk to guys after the season, like, okay, so who jumped out to you this year when you played them, right? And multiple times his name came up from other coaches. And they're like, yo, like, he literally dominates the game from the linebacker position. And just like you, if you watch his film, his sophomore film, you're like, okay, like, yeah, he's Power 5. I can see him playing in a Power 5 school. But, it doesn't really jump out at you. And I reminded people, I said, hey, when Cam Williams came to the Irish Invasion, Cam Williams was considered a 3-star that was being recruited by the same group of teams that recruited this kid. Like, I just want to point it out. And now all of us on the Irish Breakdown staff, we pretty much push that Cam Williams is a 5-star. Like, you watch his film, and this young man plays in the same area and plays the same level of competition that Cam Williams does. Cam Williams dominated this year. And this kid still has another year to get better, which I assume that he will. But don't look at the stars. As I said, I listened to the coaches that play this young man, and I told you the other night when we had the conversation that he may be committing soon. And I said, yo, he is literally underrated locally. Like, he is underrated locally. So I understand when you
Yeah.
look at it from a national standpoint, people are like, what? But no, he's underrated locally. But when you talk to these coaches that have actually, coached against him, they rave about the young man, just absolutely rave about the way he plays the position. And then I'll just point out, and then you can rock on the situation in the backstory. But
Yeah.
anytime I see Iowa looking at a kid from Illinois at the position of offensive line, linebacker,
Yeah.
defensive line, or safety, they got a kid from Kenwood in 23, Khalil Tate.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna end. I bet he's gonna end up being an NFL player. I'm willing to put money on it.
Yeah.
Right? Other schools might have overlooked them, but for some reason, when Iowa locks in on Illinois kids, number one, the Iowa staff shows up. Iowa and Wisconsin are staffs that show up to more Illinois suburban games than any other staff. If you talk to Illinois high school coaches, they will tell you the most active staffs historically have been Iowa and Wisconsin. This is going back. This is how Barry Alvarez
Yes.
helped build that program. Like, pretty much getting all the kids that were overlooked from Illinois, Wisconsin, and the surrounding areas. So, getting a kid like this that's overlooked, Marcus Freeman, Al Golden, and the guys that coach the position, these are the evaluators. So I feel pretty confident in what they see in this kid.
I do too, Sean, because like this was the transparency I talked about, right? Before we get into a little bit of the backstory. When I heard that Dom was going to make a decision for Notre Dame, and Notre Dame was obviously taking the commitment, my first process, and this is a flawed process by me, was I thought about the most recent film I had seen. And the most recent film I had saw was sophomore film. I had not seen any of his junior film. So my emotions were simply, I don't know why that's a take right now. Like that was my emotions. Like, I'm like, there's some good things on Dominik Hulak's sophomore film, obviously, right? Like, he has good length and he's a physical kid, and there's a lot of cool things, right? But it just would not have been necessarily a take for me at that point, right? But then I made a decision to be open-minded, take a step back, and let's go watch the most recent film. And his film as a junior is really good, in my opinion. It's really good. There's a lot of great stuff. And I think he's underrated locally, to your point, because he plays so many different spots because he's such a talented athlete, right? Like, they put him at defensive end at times, linebacker. He plays tight end on offense. Like, he's just moving around. And not only does he just play linebacker, he's playing Mike linebacker at some spots. He's playing Sam when they're in like a more of a 4-3 look. Like, they're moving him around so much that I think that kind of takes away from like the just gelling and notoriety at one different spot. So he's a much better player as a junior than what I saw as a sophomore. Sophomore would not have been a take for me. Junior year, I have to think, based upon my opinion of it and what I would perceive the staff is that they liked Dom, but then they saw the junior film and they saw the progress he made, and they're like, okay, now that's the guy that we're going to push for, right? And for people that are asking about positions, we'll get into a really interesting conversation I actually had with Dom. I have two pieces coming out. One came out this morning. Another one's probably going to come out either later tonight or tomorrow. I had a really nice conversation with Dom on Wednesday night where I, got to just get a little bit insight into, his commitment and why he was making the decision. And it's a very interesting position breakdown that we'll get into, Sean. But basically, he's a hybrid player in Notre Dame's opinion. He could play end, more of a Viper type. He could play linebacker, and there might even be a potential position that he could play that's a little bit more of a hybrid spot than we've even seen on this Notre Dame defense moving forward. So that is kind of the way that they look at him, and we'll get into it. We'll get into it obviously more in just kind of how he fits into the class, Sean. But here's the backstory, and it's pretty cool, man. Like honestly, like this is one of my this is easily my favorite part of this. This is why we try to have as many interviews on this show as we possibly can, because I love just getting the backstory stuff, man, and I love just kind of hearing the process and the pitch and how everything kind of ended up this way. So Dominik Hulak got offered during the pot of golds in St. Patrick's Day, and since then he has had consistent communication with with Notre Dame up until that point, right? But he talked to me and I asked him, he said, I think this was like a direct quote, Sean. He's like, the last 2 weeks have gotten very crazy and very hectic. Why? Because Notre Dame over the last couple weeks has really been putting the pedal to the metal on this recruitment and trying to close this one down. They were done. So the last couple months, they've had obviously very consistent contact. He also came for the USC game, which was the first game day visit he's had at Notre Dame. He's been to campus obviously a couple of times before that, but it was his first game day visits. And that was kind of the last check of the box. And on Tuesday nights, he disclosed this to me. Chad Bowden had called him, and he and Chad had a 30-minute conversation on the phone, Sean. And if you know high school kids, right, high school juniors, getting them to talk for 30 minutes isn't the easiest thing in the world, right? Like, it's not the easiest thing in the world. So they had the conversation, and basically Chad poses to him like, what else do you have to see? Like, what else is there to see? Because coming out of the USC visit, basically Dom's mom is like big Notre Dame, like big pro Notre Dame. It was like, she wanted him to go to Notre Dame. There's no doubt about that.
Surprise, right? The mom is in love with Notre Dame.
The mom is an ally of Notre Dame. There is no doubt about that. And basically Chad had posted like, what are you waiting for? Like, what else do you need to see? And Dom said at that moment, he kind of just had like an epiphany of sorts. He's just like, yeah, what am I waiting for? I'm not really sure what I have to see anymore, Yeah. And so at that moment, he was like, you know what? You're right. I want to commit to you. I want to commit to the staff right now. I want to do it.
Right.
But Chad, being the great person he is, said, love it. We'll take you. We want you. But call me in the morning. Sleep on this thing. Don't make a rash decision. Sleep on this. So what's he do the next morning, Sean? Wednesday morning? Calls Chad before school. Chad's like, dope. Obviously, he's fully committed at that point. Connect him to Marcus Freeman and the staff. The rest is history, man. And this is how we are where we are today. So we had a mom as an ally, as we always did. We had a staff that is relentless down the stretch, especially for Dom, obviously making him feel a part of this class. And look, you need to, for this one in particular, Notre Dame needs to, and I'm about to block Ted Jones permanently, Ted. I need the negativity out of the chat, my guy, or else it is going to happen, sir. I don't like blocking people, but chill out.
People, it's amazing how people think they determine the future. You're like, the NFL and college football has been littered with 2 stars and 3. It's the type of comment that you would have heard about Sauce Gardner at Cincinnati.
Oh, could you imagine if Notre Dame would have recruited Ahmad 2-star Sauce Gardner? Can you imagine, man? Could you imagine?
Ted Jones would have been like, oh, this kid, he can't play at this level.
He's not good. He sucks, Meanwhile, he's an all-pro in the NFL like 2 years into his NFL career. But sorry, I went off on there a little bit. I'm just trying. I want Dom to have his moments because he deserves this moment because he's been working hard for a long time to get to this moment. So, Sean, all that to say is this. A lot of coaches need a lot of props for this recruitment. Chad Bowden, big time recruiting director for Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman, big time. He's been instrumental in this one. Al Golden, instrumental in this one. And Al Washington. They've all talked to him, Sean. They all talk to him consistently because he's a player that could play linebacker, could play edge. And there's a lot of different... Oh my gosh. A lot of different
that response or rebuttal was like the worst.
Yeah, I know. But Sean, given the kid this moment here, this Notre Dame staff deserves a lot of credit because even if you don't agree with the evaluation, they found a kid that they love and they pushed hard for him and they closed down the stretch on Mr. Dominik Hulak.
It is. Look, I think it's just to point out, right? Let's talk about the Cincinnati team that walked in here and spanked Notre Dame in Notre Dame Stadium. Just go check the recruiting rankings on the best players. That's all I'm saying. They're not good enough. That's Cincinnati. They're not good enough for this level, but they were good enough to walk into Notre Dame Stadium and spank Notre Dame. So I don't. I'm sure the Kansas City Chiefs would tell you they love that 3-star kid. That's their starting safety right now. That started for them in the Super Bowl as a true freshman. I mean, a true rookie. I'm sure they love him. Brian, the Cook kid, love him. I'm sure the Jets love Sauce, love him.
Yep.
But Sauce wasn't good enough to play at Notre Dame, though. There's no way he was good enough to play at Notre Dame. It's like, this is why, when we talk, people said the same thing. Well, I watched the film on Carson Hobbs, and I was like, dude, I trust Mike Mickens over you. I trust Mike Mickens over me. Right? And the reason I think there's a connection, I'm interested because you've talked to him.
Yep.
Did the line? Why am I drawing a blank? The new linebacker, GA.
Max Bullock.
Bullock.
Yep.
Another. Hey, he grew up in the same area in Illinois, played the same position. I'm interested in, was there comfortability there, and whether or not I would be interested in seeing if he had conversations with Max, about coming to Notre Dame and, being from that area and the impact. Because Max Bullock, let me tell you something, man. I understand he's a GA, but this is what I gathered. He's very involved in the teaching of that position. Or at least he was with the youngsters. Like the veterans like Kaiser Bertrand, like, yo, they've been locked in for 3 years. They know this system for 2 years. Okay, it might not be too much that they need to be taught position-wise. But he's very involved with the development of Drake Bowen, Jaden Osbury, and some of the younger guys, even though he's technically a GA. So I'd just be very interested to see if he had conversations. He's an Illinois kid from the suburbs, just like Hulak. He wasn't as versatile or athletic as Dominik, and I like that versatility. And I think that's something because, and look, we're going to talk to Sean Sevillano moving forward, and he's going to be able to provide something that we haven't seen at Notre Dame consistently on the interior of the defensive line, right? A kid from the South that is an SEC kid that chose Notre Dame over Ohio State, Florida, schools like that at 320, 330 pounds. We haven't seen that, right? But Notre Dame, I think, understands that from a quantity standpoint, their chance of getting those type of kids is not as good as Georgia or Alabama. So what do we need to do? We need to give ourselves more variety, more flexibility, more versatility with talent and length, but still we need to be more versatile, especially along the defensive line, where we might have, let's say, a roster of 4 guys that if we go up against Alabama, Georgia, we can be physical up front and not wear 1 or 2 guys out. But the way football is going, heck, we might have to face an Ohio State. We might have to face a Washington. We might have to face an Oregon. So now we need to have the flexibility to whereas we can attack different defenses different ways. And I think they recognize that as a staff, and you're seeing that. That's why I pushed away the argument everybody had, about the whole Chicago inner city, South Bend thing that took place. It was like, dude, this is whatever. The staff, you can see what the staff is doing.
Yep.
They're going into these areas. They're getting talented players. Like, don't even listen to that. All right. And once again, I know he's a suburban kid, but it's a Chicago area kid, right?
It is.
And
Yep.
the Burgess kid, which I think Notre Dame, you agree as well, they're in a pretty good position with another
They are.
Chicago kid. I pointed out the last time we were on. If Notre Dame pushed for and wanted Malik Elzy would have been there
Yes.
and been theirs. And he's from the same school as Burgess. So another example, I brought up Khalil Tate, right? That's at Iowa. Mike Mickens personally drove up and watched him in practice. He didn't just depend upon film. He personally went to Kenwood Academy and watched this kid practice. And then decided, to go elsewhere. But it's like the Notre Dame staff understands, in my opinion, what the problems were at the end of the previous regime from a recruiting standpoint. And they're making more than an incredible effort, in my opinion, to not only dispel those issues, but to rip up those issues at the root and not allow them to fester and continue when it comes to Notre Dame and recruiting.
Yeah, Sean, it's a lot of great points. And I mean, look, again, watching the junior film, and I'll pop it on here in a little bit of Mr. Dominik Hulak. And I hope if you just come, and this is my urge to people out there, if you come with like a sound mind and no bias attached, I think you're going to watch the film and be like, oh, he's a lot better than some people in the chat might portray him to be, right? So I think that we'll get a little bit of film work there at the end of this at the end of this segment of the show. Sean, I want to talk about the fit into the Notre Dame class. Obviously, this is going to be a really intriguing one because I know a lot of people are asking about, what does this do from a numbers perspective at defensive line, linebacker? There's a lot of things that could potentially happen here. The fact of the matter, though, guys, is if we're being honest about it, it's not 100% known where that number will lie in the end because Dominik Hulak could be a linebacker. He could be a defensive end. He could be in the defensive line class. So he's a hybrid player, which means there's flexibility with numbers there too, right? So I don't think that Dominik Hulak is going to block a really good defensive end from if Notre Dame wants to claim him because they can adjust that position to linebacker, right? If they want to in the class. And it's vice versa. I don't think it's going to block a really good linebacker. There is flexibility as a recruiter is the point here. Now, if we look at him from two vantage points, Sean, defensive line wise, if we're going to count him as a Viper in this class, this is how it looks right now, is that you now have 4 defensive linemen, if you're counting Hulak as a defensive lineman, in the 2025 class. You have CJ May, star pass rusher out of Alabama. You have Joseph Reif, who's another local kid in the state of Illinois. And you also have, of course, Davion Dixon, who was the first commit in the 2025 class. So with that in mind, as of today, if those were the positions you're looking at those guys at, I want people to understand this. Notre Dame, while CJ May's body might look like a Viper today, they believe that he could be a big end. That's kind of projecting where they think he is going to be. So today, if you're counting Hulak as a Viper, you have one Viper in the class, you have one big end in the class in CJ May, and you have potentially 2 interior players because Davion Dixon is absolutely a nose tackle. And I'm telling you guys this because we have been made aware of this. Notre Dame actually sees Joseph Reif as being eventually a Riley Mills-esque player where, yes, he could potentially play some big ends, but ultimately down the road, his best spot is probably going to be 3-tech as his body continues to develop. So they actually think of Joseph Reif more as an interior player than what they do as a defensive end because Notre Dame doesn't like the interior defensive line class in 2025. That's just point blank to it. They don't love the class. They like the edge spot, though. So they're trying to keep those options open. And Notre Dame still has multiple spots left at defensive end, one at big end, one at Viper potentially, even if you count Dominik Hulak as a Viper. I would still anticipate, and I did this in an extra recruiting show this week. I think it'll probably be live either tonight or tomorrow morning. Notre Dame's going to push for Damian Shanklin at Viper. They're going to push for him. They're going to continue to recruit hard Christopher Burgess, and he is 100% a take for Notre Dame as of today. 100%. He's a player that Notre Dame has made a priority, and I talked about this with you, Sean. Notre Dame's in a good spot with Christopher Burgess. I would say that they're the leader for Christopher Burgess right now. So you're going to keep pushing for those couple players. Isaiah Campbell is also going to visit for the Duke game, the defensive end out of the state of North Carolina, who's an absolute stud. Now, I think that visit is going to tell you a lot about just how much of a reasonable fit that is for Notre Dame and for Isaiah Campbell, because that's going to be his first visit to campus. But Notre Dame is recruiting him. There's also a couple very talented Vipers on the board outside of Damian Shanklin and Dominik Hulak, if you consider him as Viper. You're still recruiting Austin Alexander out of the state of Kansas. You're still recruiting Hayden Lowe out of California. You're also still recruiting Matthew Johnson, who goes to De La Salle High School out in California as well, who's more of a big end type, but they're still recruiting him as well. All of this is to say that Notre Dame is in a good spot for the defensive line in 2025. You have your interior seemingly already down. Now your edges are what's going to drive this class. That Notre Dame wants 4 potential defensive ends in this class. 2 big ends, 2 Vipers, ideally. Now, there's another reality, though, Sean, where Dominic Hulak is more counted as a linebacker in this class, right? Where it's not going to change anything, folks. It's not going to change anything. The point here is that there's flexibility. I believe this wholeheartedly, and I'll retract this if I'm wrong. But judging by just everything I know and everything I'm hearing and the actions I'm seeing, if Notre Dame got commitments from, let's say, Damian Shanklin and Christopher Burgess tomorrow, I still believe that they would push hard for an Isaiah Campbell, for instance, and take him and potentially make the fit make sense. This is not going to limit what Notre Dame wants to do schematically from a recruiting perspective. They are still pushing for Christopher Burgess hard. They are still recruiting Damian Shanklin hard. They're still going to recruit Isaiah Campbell, Hayden Lowe, Matthew Johnson. They're not stopping defensive end recruiting for Dominik Hulak. It's just a part of this is a part of the class, right? In the entirety, because I think Brian made a great point on the message board this morning, Sean. I don't know if you saw this, but someone asked if Dominik Hulak was a gap closer. And Brian's response is, by himself, no. But a part of a class, he absolutely can be a part of a gap closing class. Absolutely. And we need to kind of get our mind more to that, right? So Notre Dame is in a great spot, because if I told you guys today that Notre Dame ended the 2025 cycle with CJ May, Dominik Hulak, Davion Dixon, Joseph Reif, Christopher Burgess, and Damian Shanklin, and potentially get another defensive end, let's say it's an Isaiah Campbell, is anybody out there going to cry about that class? Is anybody going to complain about that class? That's a dang good class, Sean. I mean, I would be very surprised if they weren't happy about that class. I don't know if you feel differently, but that's my opinion on that.
Sometimes people Brian, I'll break it down like this. I feel pretty comfortable saying it too, because my beautiful wife is within ear listening distance. You know, if I grew up in Hollywood, more than likely I probably wouldn't have met my wife. And if my dad was a big time TV or movie producer, I probably would have been around stars or young teenage stars, and probably would have ended up dating one of those teenage stars, and probably would have ended up in a relationship with one of those teenage stars, and maybe even had a family and gotten married and had children. But if was a fifth, we'd all be drunk. Right? And I feel like Notre Dame fans, from a recruiting standpoint, constantly want to live on the island of if.
Yep.
Right? If we were Alabama, or if we were Georgia, or if we had NIL like these schools, or if we did this like Ohio State, you can come off the island. Okay? This is Notre Dame, and this is how Notre Dame has to recruit. And if Notre Dame has to recruit this way, Why fuss? It's like, because it's not like you don't know. I saw somebody, kind of say, oh, the defensive line class in 25 is loaded. Not for Notre Dame. Like,
well, and not in the interior
Alabama.
nationally. Like Sean, like there's a couple good interior players in the class just nationally, right? But like it's not loaded for interior talent. It's loaded at edge. There's a lot of really good talented defensive ends in my opinion. But edge is, I mean, who are the studs on the interior? Because I mean, you can't even necessarily count Elijah Griffin as an interior player yet. He still plays edge mostly. I mean, I don't know. So
So it's like, for instance, if there are 10 great defensive tackles in this recruiting class, forget the year, just hypothetically, all 10 are available to Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia. All 10. Notre Dame might be a right fit for maybe 3. Right?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
It might,
you're not
it
wrong.
might be a year where it's 15 that are really good, and now you have 5 or 6.
Right.
Then Notre Dame are like, okay. So for Notre Dame, it's like, okay, this is a better class than the previous year. So things are just different. And we know that about Notre Dame. Right? Doesn't mean the staff does not go after elite players.
Right.
They just don't fish from the same pond.
Right.
And the way they stock the pond at the pond that they fish at is totally different than how they stock it for some other state schools. It is what it is. So from a recruiting standpoint, I don't understand how a kid like Dominik Hulak is a frustration. Because we should be encouraged that the staff has a knack for identifying those that are not ESPN top 300. Right.
So and Sean, I just think every recruit is built like it's trajected differently, right? Like not every player is just in the same situation, grew up with the same amenities, with everything working towards them. Like I think we have to view this from an individual perspective and case by case. Yes, there are some recruits that you might see Notre Dame going after that, like you might not see it, right? You might not see it. And it's fully understandable. But then you see the development and you're like, okay, Notre Dame may have just been ahead of the curve in certain spots, right? I mean, I think we need to really understand how the recruiting process works. This isn't just a singular, this is the only way to recruit. This is the only way that works for each and every team. Recruiting strategies work for completely different teams, right? And yes, Notre Dame still has potential to on the defensive line in 2025. If you land Christopher Burgess, and you land maybe an Isaiah Campbell or you land a Damian Shanklin, Sean, those are 3 high upside kids, man. Those kids can be really dang good, man. Like we're acting like Notre Dame is just done defensive line recruiting. All I'm saying is, in the end, even if you don't like this take right now, if you put it a part of a class, then I think that you're going to look back and be like, oh yeah, that made a lot of sense at the time. That made a lot of sense because it's about, I think it's about fitting pieces together, right? Like fit pieces together, and that makes sense. Sean, make your point. I'm actually going to start playing as we get ready. We have an interview coming up in a couple minutes, folks. I'm going to play a little bit of Dominik Hulak's junior film so far, the newest commit to the University of Notre Dame. We talked about class fit. We talked about what's next, defensive line recruiting, linebacker recruiting, a lot of players on the board there. Enjoy Sean's great analysis as I play a little bit of Dominik Hulak's film.
And really, Double R, it's not really an analysis. It's a question. Give me your ranking of the 3 guys that linked up at the Irish invasion. C.J. Carr, Cam Williams, and Jack Larson. Give me your ranking
as
of those
now
guys
or when
right
it
now.
happened.
Right? No. Right now. Give me both. When it happened and now, because I think that will give a lot of credence to why you don't panic about kids that commit early and what their star rankings are?
So at the time I would have said CJ Carr, and then
Mm-hmm.
it would have probably been a 2A, 2B conversation to Cam and Jack. Like, you could have convinced me either way. I think that Jack was more developed as a junior or before his junior year than what Cam was, but Cam had more upside, if that makes sense. So I think that is a easy conversation. Today, for me, it's Cam Williams
Easily.
by a landslide at number one. Like,
Easily.
all due respect to CJ, because CJ's still really good, but Cam Williams is a legitimate 5-star top 20 football player in the 2024 class, in my opinion. I think he's that good. Now, CJ, top 50 all day, high 4-star, bordering 5-star caliber quarterback. He's also very good, but he's number 2 for me in that class. And then Jack is just a steady third, man. He's still a top 150 football player. He's still a good player, but Cam Williams, to your point, I think this is the point that you're making, got better, right?
Yes.
He developed and became a higher level prospect as of now.
And as good as Jack Larson has been his senior year, he has almost taken a step back in the rank guys that do the rankings I cite since that Irish invasion. There was much more buzz about Jack Larson when he pretty much came away from the Irish invasion ready to commit, him and CJ Carr, right? Cam Williams took a little bit longer. But you can basically almost just inverse the original rankings you had coming out of the Irish invasion. And you could say the case to where it could literally be the inverse order right now. Like, you could debate that. And that's why when you have young men commit early and they still have a full year and a half to develop and get better, it's like, relax. If this was a kid, if we're watching if we're watching a kid, which was like Dominik Hulak, sophomore.
Watch this play. Watch this play, by the way, as you talk, Sean. Look at that change of direction for 6'3", 232 pounds with length. Okay, just keep watching. Keep watching.
But like I said, if this was his film and he was about to commit to Notre Dame like in December, okay, I could see someone like, I don't know. All right, because I mean, you're comparing them to Kingston, and all right, fine.
Sure.
But this is a kid that I'm telling you, local coaches rave about as a kid and a football player. They like, dude, he just dominates the game from like everywhere. Okay. Then
well,
what else?
Sean, the main criticism I saw of Dominik Hulak in the chat earlier that I completely disagree with, someone said he's not athletic enough to play on the second level. And I disagree so much with that, man. I watched this film and I'm like, the kid is running by dudes, and also the change of direction in space for a kid that is, and someone asked about the official measurements. Last time he was on campus, I think he was a hair over 6'3" and 232 pounds. And I don't have an arm length measurement, but like, I watch him on film, I'm like, arms look pretty big for me. Pretty good arm length, dude, overall. So I think this kid's a whole lot more talented than people are going to try to give him credit for, because, Sean, he's a 3-star. He's a 3-star. He can't be good, man. Just a 3-star. He can't be good. He can't be.
But going along with what you said about the possibilities for him moving down the line.
Yeah.
It is very similar to what Iowa does as a program.
Yes.
Iowa takes these type of kids, and you look up in a year and a half, and they're 290 pounds playing defensive tackle, and they become like the next Jared DeVries or something. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
or they're a lightly recruited 3-star, and they turn into Jack Campbell, who just went 16th overall in the 2024 or 2023 NFL draft.
Yeah. Or
they turn, or Leo Chenal, who played at Wisconsin, who was an absolute stud of an athlete, but no one knew about him because he came from a school that like no one ever heard of before that. So that's Dominik Hulak, folks. We're going to cut the conversation a little bit short there. I think this is a really nice early gift for Notre Dame in the 2025 class. Linebacker, defensive recruits. That's going to do it for this portion of the show. Notre Dame Recruiting Hour here on the Irish Breakdown podcast. We have an interview for you guys up next on the show. Sean, I'm excited about this one, man. I'm excited about getting Mr. Sean Sevano on set here, who is one of the more productive defensive linemen that I can ever remember in high school football. I mean, the guy had almost over 100 tackle for losses in his last 2 seasons combined, Sean. Like, this is just some nutty production that Sean has been putting out on film. Of course, he is down there at Clearwater Academy International, formerly from Canada, originally to begin with. So he's got a fascinating backstory that I've written about a ton in the past, but I want to bring him in the show, Sean, because I know that he has a great personality. I know Notre Dame fans are going to love this guy when he gets to campus. So, Sean Sevano, how are you, sir?
Doing good. How we doing, guys?
Great,
good,
man. Great to see you. How are you feeling, man?
You know, with signing day and all that coming up, man, I just can't wait to get on campus and get to work.
Yeah. Well, and Sean, I'm happy for you, man, because after the work you've been putting in over the last couple of years, finally get to let the body rest for a couple of weeks here, man. It's like you're back to work. How's recovery and everything going, man? Another great season, by the way. How's just everything just kind of getting back healthy and everything?
I appreciate it. You know, with us finishing last Friday and all that, you know, I've always found my body recovers pretty fast. So I've got moving into this weekend, getting some runs in, stretching, all that, and I'm not ramped up fully into off-season work, but you know, I've already started working, lifting a little bit here and there, and I'm just so fired up to get on campus, man. I feel like there's no time to waste, you know. So,
yeah. Yo, so you're talking about moving forward, being excited about getting on campus, but I want to ask you, man, because I still think about my high school years, man, on the basketball court, and it goes by so fast. Like when you first get in. And you look up, and the next thing you know, it's your last game, your senior year.
Yeah.
How have you kind of reconciled that? Have you taken time to just sit back and just say, man, I'm done, and, you know, kind of focused on where you were and how far you've come on and off the field?
Honestly, Sean, I really haven't, because you know, I enjoyed my high school years, and I've done the most to make it the best. But I'm focused on what's ahead of me. And I know my best days are ahead, and that's what I'm focused on right now.
That's
well, Sean, I know you want to keep your eyes forward, obviously, but I do want to ask, because obviously you made the commitment to Notre Dame before the senior season had officially started. So I want to ask you, man, just kind of looking back for a second, because you had a lot of great suitors. I mean, offers from Auburn, Ohio State, a lot of great schools, right? Making the commitment to the University of Notre Dame, thinking back on it, just how happy are you for the decision that you made in what was probably a very hectic time of your life?
Yeah, no doubt. So, I mean, that was probably top 3 hardest decisions I've ever made in my life, is committing to realistically what's going to be a 40-year decision for me. And looking back on it as time went on, and, you know, I had a great relationship with all the coaches and staff there at the time. But as we keep going, as I get to build my relationship with Coach Free, Coach Wash, Coach Golden, the recruiting staff there. I mean, I feel it was the best decision for me. I feel it not only fits me as like a football player and what I'm looking for academically, I feel that Notre Dame is a place that fits my personality and who I am as a person. And so, you know, I'm beyond grateful for everybody that let me make that decision, and beyond stoked about it.
What have been?
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask Sean as a follow-up, what have been the vibes for the last couple of times that you've gotten back on campus? Because I know when you're making that decision, you get on campus, you're trying to, you know, obviously play it cool, like make sure you're taking everything in, make sure you're making a solid decision. But being a committed player in what I think is going to be a great 2024 class for the future of Notre Dame football, what's it like just getting back to campus, man, and being around those guys that I'm sure you've gotten very close with over the last couple months?
Yeah. It's been great. Like getting to know the guys and all that. There's been no bad apples, no guys you don't enjoy to be around, which is great. It's one of my it's probably my favorite part about the class, just how good of guys each of them are, and I feel that we all believe in this class, and we know that something's coming. So we're ready to bring some trophies back to Notre Dame.
Oh, I know Notre Dame fans love hearing that, man. So when you talk about coming from Florida, big guy in the middle, I don't know if you heard this, but I've heard this from several Notre Dame fans. They're like, yo, he kind of reminds me of Louis Nix.
I've heard that too.
He might be and I've heard recruits talk about like your personality, and you just mentioned that. Like, talk to us about your personality, because a lot of Notre Dame fans are looking and saying, "Yo, I hope he's the next Lewis Nix." And is that the type of personality? Because he was so jovial, man. Everybody loved him. Like, when spring game, he had a touchdown at running back, and people were just going crazy. Do you think that's the type of personality you'll be bringing to this class in the program?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Lewis Nix and I obviously are going to be a little different, just in terms of us not being the same person. But I try and bring that aspect to obviously my game and who I am as a person. I like to have fun. I know when to get serious and when I got to handle business. But when we're in the moment, I like to have fun and make it as fun as possible. Because at the end of the day, this football is a game, and I'm being recruited to play this game, and I find it as it's a pretty good deal. Might as well have fun while I'm on the way.
So they used to call him Irish Chocolate.
Irish Chocolate, yeah.
That was his nickname.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to find you a nickname too. I don't know. Is there a nickname that you can think of right now that you'd be like, I think I like that?
A lot of people call me Big Bear, and that
okay.
That nickname started on campus at Notre Dame. Chad gave me that nickname. So I mean, it's been spreading pretty fast. Everybody's calling me Big Bear right now, and I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah, well, that's the name on Twitter too, man. So I know you got that. You got that. Keep building that bread, man. In the NIL era, you need that bread. No doubt about that. Well, you mentioned Chad already, Sean. I know I've talked to you in the past about Chad and obviously his role in your recruitment and the great relationship you built with him and Al Washington and everything. Let me ask, because I know it's probably a little bit of a different relationship as a committed player, and then obviously the coaches are in season, you were in season, but how have you continued to, I guess, build that relationship during a time when, you guys are just both a little bit busier than you probably were before the season started, if that makes sense?
Yeah. With all the coaches, or just in terms of what?
Yeah, just your main point of contact. So I guess if you want to go like Al Washington, maybe a little Al Golden, Chad Bowden, just those guys. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's a little different because everybody's got a little bit more going on, but I say the main points of contact is still Coach Free, Coach Wash, Coach Golden, and Chad, and it's mainly calls on the weekend and just, hey, how you doing, and talking about what's going on and just catching up, talking ball. It's nothing much to it, but that just keep on building, keep on getting better at ball.
So everyone keeps asking me, so you are enrolling early though, right? You are a January enrollee. What is your goals, man, as far as maybe that first couple months there, the spring ball? What do you want to get across to the Notre Dame coaches and all the spectators as far as like what you can bring to the team?
So I've said this before on different interviews or articles that I've been a part of. I'm the biggest go-getter out there, and I'm going to make a statement. Just making it and being on campus isn't enough for me. My goal by the end of my time as a football player is to be the best to ever play the game. So I'm here to come take somebody's spot. I'm here to come start as soon as I can, and I mean business. And I'm excited to learn from guys like Howard Cross, Riley Mills, and I'm coming to work my tail off and make that spot mine.
Ryan, I was about to say, one of the things that immediately jumped out to us when we talked about this during his recruitment and right after he committed is that his work ethic is crazy. It doesn't matter, like the videos he posts, it's like his kid is always working to get better. You can see it. Where does that work ethic come from, Sean?
Man, I could say so many different places that it comes from, but I think the big thing is my love for this game is probably the biggest thing. There's nothing I want to do other than play football in my life. I've never thought about working a 9-to-5 job. I've never thought about being a teacher or being a fireman or whatever it might be. There's nothing I've ever wanted to do but play football. And then also part of that is probably the mentality my parents instilled in me since I was a kid. It's like, if somebody's in your way and trying to stop you from their goal, you better punch them in the face and get by them. That's all it is to it. And to me, it's become this game is kill or be killed. So
Yes.
they call me a killer, I guess.
Yeah, man. No, you are. And I think the production obviously speaks to that, man. Your production has been
Absolutely.
silly over the last 2 years. Well, Sean, let me ask you this, because I know I've talked to you about obviously the Canadian pipeline that's been built at Notre Dame, from the
Yeah.
Chase Claypools of the world, the Devin Houstons of the world, the Armel Mukums of the world, and now yourself. But you actually are a very interesting player because you have two different pipelines that I think are being built at Notre Dame. One,
Yeah.
of course, is Canada. The other is Notre Dame has had their struggles in the past recruiting Florida consistently. And now I look at 2024 and now I look at 2025 and I say Notre Dame is starting to have an impact in Florida, a state that puts out so much talent. How much does it mean to you to be a part of both those pipelines, to continue to build up those pipelines to the University of Notre Dame?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, me being from Canada's, I'm very prideful of my flag and being able to come from a place where, kids don't get the opportunities that I've got being able to come here. And then when you talk about the Florida pipeline, I mean, there's so many great athletes down here that I mean, I'm excited to play with. For example, Justin, they play their playoff game tonight, and I'm gonna watch those guys play in Tampa. And then our 2025 commit at Miami Palmetto, Davian, man, I've got to know him well as well. Just two great guys that I'm excited to play with.
Yo, Ryan, you know what's crazy, man? You mentioned Canada, right?
Yep.
And I don't know if people know this story, and the only reason I know it is because I talked to Left. You mentioned Chase Claypool, to start it off. Chase Claypool didn't know the American game when he got to Notre Dame. He was just all physical talent, just rocked up, right? His first practice, he literally picks up a defensive back on a play, lifts him off the ground, and takes him out of bounds. And the coaches are like, yo, you can't do that. You can't do that. And eventually he learns and he becomes a very good player at Notre Dame and on to the NFL. But his transition actually took place at Notre Dame. Sean just spoke about the opportunity he's had and to be able to transition during his high school career from Canada to Florida. What has been the key thing in your transition that's made you the great player that you've become, in your opinion, coming from Canada and actually learning the game?
Yeah, I mean, then again, I can name a bunch of things. I've had great guys surround me my whole career here at Clearwater Academy. There's been a bunch of big recruits, especially on the O-line, that I've been able to go against, and also guys on the D-line that I've been able to learn from. But the thing I would credit myself to is my work ethic, and then me coming down here as a sophomore against guys that are 18, 19, whatever, older than me, getting my butt kicked. I mean, to me, I've had my butt kicked by guys that are seniors, that are D1 guys since when I was a sophomore, or when I was a seventh grader back in Canada, some varsity guys in Canada. I feel as when you get your butt kicked, I feel like that's when you learn the most. You got to adapt quick.
Yeah.
So I'd say that my work ethic and my drive is just some of the biggest things. And then also being heavily recruited, I felt there's going to do all these meetings with a bunch of D-line coaches, and you get to learn so much. I always have a notepad and a pen with me so I could take notes and take some stuff back home with me just to keep on refining my skills.
Is there one of those sessions that sticks out from your recruitment?
I mean, I've had plenty with Coach Wash. So I've got to learn from so many great guys, Coach Wash being one, Larry Johnson being another. There's Jim Panagos from Kansas. He's another guy. I've got to learn from so many great guys, and I've got to talk so much ball now. I've been committed with Coach Wash too. So it's a bunch of great guys that I've been able to talk ball with, and I'm very grateful for it.
Well, Sean, I'm going to get you out on this one. Thank you so much for the time today, man. We really appreciate it. But I know some people were asking just kind of some more general questions, and I think it's really important to get to know the player outside of just what you do on the field, right? So 2 questions for you, a 2-parter. One, someone just wanted to know what your potential major is going to be when you go to Notre Dame, just kind of a little bit insight. And then if you could hit us with maybe a little bit of a hidden talents of sorts, right? We know a little bit of the
Okay.
backstory stuff, but any hidden talents that you maybe not a lot of people know about you?
Okay. So going into Notre Dame, I'm looking to study something in the realm of psychology. So I'm thinking maybe neuroscience and behavior. And then when it comes to hidden talents, shoot, I don't even know. I play a lot of ball. I work out. I go to sleep and I eat. I don't do much other than that. But let me think.
Come on, man. You're not a juggler or something. You got some juggling going on. You got something.
Hey, I could do impressions pretty good. I'm an actor. I've been a part of the school play every now and then.
Okay.
I was Santa in the school play, which was Elf last year, so I'm not too bad. I say I have a pretty vibrant personality, so
Hey, man, psychology major. You got some impersonations. You are a more well-rounded human being than myself, sir. So, Sean Sevano, 2024 Notre Dame defensive tackle commit, soon to be signee for the University of Notre Dame out of
yes,
the
sir.
state of Florida, but originally from the great country of Canada. Sean, we really appreciate you for taking some time here, man, especially during the school day and everything. Thank you so much for joining the show, brother. And I hope to have you back on again soon. Okay.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you guys.
All right. Sean, I knew he was going to bring some great energy, man. He's such a good young man, honestly. Like I've had the chance to talk to him on the phone a few times now at this point, just do some interviews with him. Just a really good young man, outside of being obviously the dominant player he is in high school.
Yeah.
Like he is just there's just some kids where, and I'll be honest about this, and most of them don't end up at Notre Dame. I've had some interviews where I'm just like, it's like pulling teeth and it's just not fun, to be honest, right? Sean
Yeah.
Sevillano has never been that guy, right? Where I'm just like, I enjoy actually talking to him, messaging him from time to time just to check in and see how everything's going. Just a
Yeah.
really good young man, which I'm very happy that he was able to join us,
It is. Look, man, to read articles and watch film is one thing. And we said this, and I'm sure we're going to get to this because I think we have a couple of mailbag questions. There's nothing like when you're an evaluator getting to sit down, talk to a young man, absorb, his spirit, absorb his personality. And it tells you a lot more. You can tell a lot more about a kid talking to him in person than you can watching film and reading articles, right?
Agreed. Yep.
Ryan, look, that
That's why I
Lewis
like
Nick,
getting kids on the podcast too, man, because like, again, I don't think that words do justice to a personality all the time. You know what I mean?
no,
I just don't think it does.
no.
Yep.
And it is absolutely amazing to hear him say what he said. Because I can read between the lines. He can't say it, but I'll say it. He intends to make somebody think about transferring next spring.
And I want guys like that, man. I
You
want guys like
understand?
that. Come in and compete.
Like,
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
like this is Notre Dame. I know Notre Dame has an image, whatever. Notre Dame needs some guys like this
He said it, Sean. He
on the
said it.
roster.
He said it. I'm a killer, I guess you could say.
You might as
Notre
well
Dame
call him
needs
Big
more
Bear
killers.
Killer.
Yeah,
Might as
man.
well call him
Hey,
Big Bear Killer. I loved it. Like immediately, I'm a fan because I'm like, yo, he's not going in there during the off season in January when they're lifting weights, trying to make friends. He's like, yo, I'm coming for your job. I'm coming for your job. I'm trying to get on the field. Like
yes.
Gabriel Ruby. I don't want to call out the names, but it's like, yo, and if you have not stepped forward and established yourself, that's on you. Because I'm coming. Because look,
yeah.
for
Yep.
him, because I understand what we just watched, Ryan. That might be the first interview where 4 for 40 wasn't really even broached by a recruit. This is a young man that flat out told you, it's one thing I've been wanting to do my whole life. And out of all of the coaches, great coaches that coach the defensive line position, I chose to commit to Coach Wash, Marcus Freeman, and Notre Dame.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
But Notre Dame isn't supposed to be able to get kids like that. Kids that place the NFL above everything else, right? Notre Dame, they don't get kids like that. Okay. Well, that interview just kind of crushed that narrative. Yeah.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree. Hey, man, great young man. I expect him to compete, and I expect him to keep his butt off. Because if you watch anything he does, also, Sean, he hits the weight room hard, man, and
Mhm.
he hits the field hard, obviously. I know some people were asking, I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe he's from Winnipeg originally, I believe is the part of Canada that he's from, but do not quote me on that, but I'm about 99% sure that is correct because I've talked to him about it a little bit in the past, so I believe it is Winnipeg. Yep. So Sean Sevano joining the Irish Breakdown podcast for the first time. Great young man, really talented player, very productive football. I mean, Sean, I'm going to say this one more time just for people to understand the context of this, okay? In the last 2 seasons that Sean Sevano has played, junior and senior year, he has had over 50 tackles for loss in each season, over 100 in the last 2 years combined.
I love it.
I want people to hear that. I want them to just understand that because Sean also was playing some really an uptick in competition this year as well. Like he's playing the Miami Palmettos of the world this year, right? Against some really good Division I caliber offensive players. And yet his production is bananas. Bananas. It's impressive stuff, man. He's an impressive young man. Wish him obviously the best as he transitions. Early enrollee, you heard it, man. So he'll be there in January, University of Notre Dame. So Sean Sevano, 2024 Notre Dame commit in the class, who is heading to Notre Dame in January. Sean, I think that's a clean transition, man. We're going to get into a little bit of some mailbag action. I'm going to bring one up. I'm going to ask you first, and then I'm actually going to go run because I got to get my charger for my laptop. So I got to figure that thing out, man, because my power is dwindling a little bit, sir. So let's go. All right, let's do this one, Sean. I'm gonna hit you with this one first. A little bit more of a team related question. If you have any mailbag questions, please put it in the chat. Brian Reitz with a question. Thank you, Brian. Between JD Bertrand, Maris Loifval, and Jack Kaiser, which would be more beneficial to have come back for another year, in your opinion? And who should go so that others can start filling in?
Wow. Oh man. You know what? I'm just going to be flat out honest. For me, they all can go. They all can go. At this point, the 22 and the 23 class of linebackers, they've had 2 years in the system as well. Because Al Golden seems to harp on that time in the system, knowing the system, communication. Okay, they haven't played, but they've had 2 years in the system. Now it's time to let them go. It's time to take them off the leash, and it's time to let them play. That's it. I think Notre Dame understands, and this is, I don't know if they line this up, and they have conversations. I'm sure Marcus Freeman has had conversations with Jack Swarbrick, and you notice how the schedule became very light for Notre Dame in comparison to previous seasons, and how it lined up being light in the first year of expansion for the college football playoff. Right? You look at that schedule. Next year, you start off down College Station against Texas A&M, and then your next tough game isn't until November against Florida State. And honestly, Florida State is replacing a lot. A new quarterback next year, a lot of starters on defense, the offensive line, their wide receivers, both of the top receivers will be gone. So we really don't know what type of team Florida State is going to be next year, right? But the name is on the schedule in November. And then you have USC. So next year is a perfect year for all 3 of them can go. Let's let our youngsters rock. It's time to let the youth movement rock. It's the same thing at the quarterback position. If there is a year, because I know the debate has been out there about, do you go ahead and go get to the portal again to get a quarterback or this or that? If you're ever going to establish your young players next year with that schedule, is the year to do so. It lines up perfectly, right? Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman will be working on their 3rd recruiting class, and the 25 recruiting class has started out, and in my opinion, is trending in the direction where it should be and could be Marcus Freeman's best class as a head coach at Notre Dame. So if that's the case, everything seems to be aligning itself. And like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if Marcus Freeman had this conversation. Like looking at the roster, the things and the changes you need to make. When do you expect? Because he stepped in with a pretty experienced team, right? His first year as head coach, those players had been to the college football playoff, right? So expectations were high. Expectations, you get Sam Hartman, they're still high because you still have guys that have been in the program a while. But now, really this would be the first year, in my opinion, where you could be a very young and inexperienced team, and if that's the case, that's the perfect year for it to happen. You don't want it to happen in a year where you still almost have to be perfect to make it to the college football playoff, which is what the Notre Dame fan base has to deal with year in and year out, not being affiliated with a conference, right? We live and die with every game because any loss could take you out of the picture. And now with the expansion to 12, that pressure is gone, right? If it was expanded to 12 in this year, as disappointing as the season has been to this point, Notre Dame would still have an outside shot to possibly make it to 12. It would be a long shot, but there's a reason now to go out and dominate these last two games. I mean, as a program, they should still want to dominate these last two games. But it just goes to show, like next year is the perfect opportunity for the youth movement to take over in Notre Dame. The schedule sets up for it. The expectations will be lower. Just go for it. Just in my opinion, just go for it. And I know Ryan, I don't know, is it coming out next week?
What's that?
Your article about the quarterback situation?
Probably sometime in December. We wanted to wait until kind of the regular season was kind of concluded to kind of have that conversation to kind of keep the focus on what we need to do down the stretch as a football team.
I don't want to mess that up. So I'll just keep it at this. Like we've had conversations. Ryan and I have conversations surrounding the quarterback, transfer portal, other positions possibly. And I have a full understanding of what upgrades might need to take place via the transfer portal. I'm just saying, if you're doing your job as an elite program, as a coaching staff, you should be ready to hit the ground and go. Like I'll say it, I've been saying it all year. Kenny Minchie is an early enrollee, and Kenny Minchie should be able to take a game plan and go execute it right now. I didn't say the game plan had to be expansive, but he should be able to step on a college football field. And if the game plan is we're going to run the ball 45 times, heck, the same game plan Clemson gave Cade Klubnik last week. We're going to run the ball 45 times, and we're not going to put you in a position to turn the ball over.
Yeah.
And if we play great defense around you and special teams, we got a chance to win the game. That's a game plan that Kenny Minchie, as an early enrollee at the quarterback position, should be able to go out and execute. We're not asking you to do much.
Yeah.
Go execute. We got you. We got you. And that is what elite programs do. So if I'm saying that about him, then my full expectation is that game plan that he should be able to execute now in November, heck, by August next year, that should be a bigger game plan. Now you should be able to walk into a hostile environment and still hand the ball off 40 times with a great defense and give Notre Dame a chance to win. I mean, that's the expectation. And like I said, man, this coaching staff is, in my opinion, I don't know if you agree with this, but my thing was I'm all for the youth movement because I feel like it would align with the class of 25, which could end up being Marcus Freeman's best class at Notre Dame, in my opinion, right? So now you have his best class lining up with the youth movement, and we just got through talking to a kid in the 24 class that's like, I'm not coming here to wait.
And he shouldn't.
So now the culture is starting to change from the young men. Like, this is what we've been waiting for, right, Ryan? We sit here and wonder, like, yo, why isn't this kid playing? Why isn't this kid getting the opportunity? Well, sometimes you need the young men to change the culture. You need some dogs to come in and say, I'm not waiting. I don't expect Cam Williams to come in and say, oh, I'm waiting.
And if he does, then he's probably not the guy that I think he could be at Notre Dame.
Absolutely.
To your point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, I don't disagree. People always ask about this question, Sean. This is kind of my thoughts quickly on it, because I want to bang through as many as we can, because don't know how long a charge is going to stay here, man. It's a difficult day from a technology perspective. But for me, I would be okay with taking 1 to 2 of them back if they were understandable with there's going to be a youth movement at linebacker, at least cutting into reps, and you're still going to have to play special teams. That would be my, like, Maris Loifau for me. If he was okay with, hey, Maris, you're going to play, but there's going to be a split of reps next year. You're going to get 50. The other guy's going to get 50 or 60, 40 or whatever, vice versa. And you're still going to be a valuable special teamer. I'd be okay with that. I'd be cool. Jack Kaiser, if he's like, all right, I don't need a big target share of snaps defensively, but I'll still come play special teams for you. Great. JD Bertrand is someone that I would politely just kind of part ways with. And it's not because JD's not a good player. It's because JD is not, I don't think JD's going to ever come back to be a backup, right? I don't think he's ever going to come back to be a split share guy. If JD Bertrand comes back, he's going to expect to be the starting Mike and play the majority of the snaps. And I don't think he brings as much special teams value as what Marist and Jack Kaiser bring to the table, for instance, because he's not quite the athlete as those guys are, in my opinion. So
but those two guys have so much, in my opinion, Bertrand and Kaiser, have so much special teams value from an NFL standpoint, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think they can make a team, practice, squad, special teams.
I wouldn't be shocked at all if JD Bertrand made a roster in 2024 for the NFL team. I wouldn't be shocked at all. Nope. Wouldn't be shocked. I mean, there's been far worse linebackers we have seen that have made roster spots in the NFL. Not even talking Notre Dame. I'm just talking, like, I've seen some bad linebackers make roster spots on the next level. Like, not great ones. It happens all the time. So
would you have a conversation about Maris moving the defensive line strictly?
No. I would have a conversation of, you're going to kind of be a versatile move dude that might play some edge in certain scenarios and situations, but I just don't think his game is parlays to being a full-time edge on the next level, or on this level even. I think I don't know. I just think that he's a starting, he's a will linebacker that can play on the edge sometimes. That's what he is to me. I don't think he's ever going to be a full-time edge player, which I think could be what Dominik Hulak ends up being, Sean, where it's like, he's a linebacker who can also play on the edge. I'm not sure that he's a full-time edge. I'm not sure he's a full-time linebacker. You have to play the versatility side of things. So it's an interesting conversation though, man, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to, but I am excited. If there is a youth movement, I'm very excited, because you know how high I was on Drake Bowen. You know how high I was on Jay Nosberry. I mean, there's some dudes waiting at Notre Dame. There's some dudes, so I'm excited about it. A couple of super chats we had. T Guns just said, happy birthday to my fellow Devil Dogs, 248 years. We also had another super, and Tommy, thank you so much for the super chat. It's always very much appreciated. We also had one from Aiden Benami, who I just realized that you followed me on Twitter, man. I had no idea. Your name popped up the other day, and I was like, oh, there's Aiden. I had no idea you were on Twitter. Said, Ryan, Sean, who do you guys think will be the best 2024 recruit for us eye test wise? Who's the biggest sleeper? What freshman has improved most this season? So let's start us off here, Sean. First question: who will be the best 2024 recruit for us eye test wise? I have a clear answer. I don't want to make you sound biased, but it's Cam Williams for me.
It's
like
Cam
it is.
Williams. I tried to think of somebody else, but
yeah, I mean, guys, like I genuinely think that Cam is a legitimate 5-star player. The only argument that I could have is, like, if Bryce Young continues the trajectory he has, I'm like, Maybe it might be Bryce Young eventually. Like, you never know. But
Facts.
Cam is just, he was really good as a junior. Really
Yeah.
good. Top 50 caliber good as a junior.
Yeah.
And then I saw him as a senior so far. Or I think his season just ended. Saw him as a senior, and I'm like, guys, what are we doing here, man? It's a conversation now. Like, I think that people would still have like Jeremiah Smith ahead of Cam, and like that's fine. Like, I don't disagree with that at all. But like, Cam is in the conversation as a top 3 receiver, in my opinion, in the 2024 recruiting class. Excuse me. I think he's that good, guys. Like, he is a legitimate top 20 player in the class, in my opinion. He's that good.
Yeah. Only other guy, I mean, we have some honorable mentions for that. Like Bryce Young is right there. Heck, Kedron Young, in my opinion, I think he's going to be absolutely fantastic. Like,
yeah.
So
yeah, I think Kedron's going to be very good. He's going to be very good. And I guess he could technically qualify as a sleeper, Sean, because there's still a couple recruiting platforms that don't think that high of Kedron Young, which is kind of weird.
You're right.
Strange,
you're right.
Well, biggest sleeper for me, Sean, the guy that I've been talking about a ton. There is a young man by the name of Bodie Cahoon who plays at Patrick Henry High School in the state of Virginia. That, Sean, so far this year has 182 tackles. 182 in 10 football games. He's averaging over 18 tackles a game. I'm in on Bodie, man. I like the athlete as a junior, but he was developing as a linebacker. As a senior, he is becoming a linebacker, and he is dominating. I think that he is going to shock some people when he gets to Notre Dame. I do.
Yeah, I think we just talked to the sleeper. I think people are people are underestimating, like, and now that we have had an opportunity to witness his personality and his attitude, it's like, okay. And he's at a position where we need what he seems to have from an attitude standpoint. Like, his size, yes, but now you're getting his size with his attitude and being that lovable guy. That's why, man, I've literally had people that have met him at games. It's like, he reminds me of Louis Nix so much. It's like, really? Okay. And like, now talking to him, it's like, and for him to say, yeah, I've heard that. And for him to know who Louis Nix is, it's like, this kid is locked in. So like Notre Dame, the history of his position, the great players at his position.
And he's got the Big Bear nickname, man. Big Bear nickname. That's a dope one, man. That's really good. I like it. It. What freshman have you seen improve most this season, Sean, that we've seen, I guess? That's a good question. It's actually interesting because there was a few freshmen that popped up early that I feel like have fizzled a little bit, not for fault of their own either. Like, I feel like Jeremiah Love isn't being used enough. I feel like Jaden Greathouse is obviously working through the hamstring issue, and that's limited him a ton. Who's a freshman we saw a little bit that is really
this is like Cam Williams. Look, I don't care how he's being misused and not used enough. Every game, he shows you something. Like that run play to the left against Clemson, where you felt like it was going to be a 3-yard gain, and all of a sudden it ends up being like a 13-yard gain. Like, first of all, how did he avoid that dude? And then how did he like shake the next dude? Jeremiah Love is just special, man. It's just something about him, man. It just is. It's like, even if he gets 3 carries, I guarantee you one of those carries is going to be eye-opening. Like,
sure,
that's different.
Yeah.
And the Clemson game was no different.
You're not wrong. 2 guys that popped in my head. I think I'm going to settle on one. Christian Gray's got more opportunities as the season's going on. I thought he showed a lot of great stuff, and I think he's the future of the cornerback position after Cam Hart. I would also say, Sean, one guy that I don't think it's necessarily improved. I just think he's shown his talent more. I think Cooper Flanagan's playing some ball, man. He's doing a good job, in my opinion. I think he's doing a really good job. So I'll go Cooper Flanagan. That'll be my pick.
Yeah, would help if 10 actually looked at the second and third tight ends. But
oh man, we can't Sean, don't ask for too much here, okay, man.
Mhm.
Don't ask for too much.
All right. All
All
right.
right, we had another one. I'm going to kick to you first. I shall be right
Mhm.
back. We had NC Notre Dame fan who said, "What's the difference between Cam Williams and Tobias Merriweather? Because people are hyping him up the same way."
I never saw Tobias play in person, so I can't speak to the Tobias Merriweather hype. I can't. I wasn't on that train. Um, I don't think Tobias Merriweather hype is even close, prep wise, to the way we feel about Cam Williams. As I said before, I never got a chance to watch Tobias play multiple times up close and personal. Um, I think Brian Driscoll was just reporting what he heard was happening in practice. And honestly, this is my thing, and you can choose to believe it or not. There has not been a defensive back this year that Tobias Merriweather has faced that he has not run by. Matter of fact, pretty consistently, bump and run coverage man to man. There were people at the Clemson game that said he ran by the Clemson DBs at least 3 times and just didn't get the ball. So, in my opinion, what we're seeing this year from Tobias is what a freshman year looks like. This is what a freshman wide receiver looks like. I think Notre Dame didn't do the best job of developing him and giving him some confidence last year, right? He has to learn the whole playbook, all of that stuff to get on the field. It's like, if you think highly of this kid, you find ways to get him on the field, to build his confidence. You find ways to give him the ball and get him involved in the game plan. And that's what elite play callers or offensive coordinators do. They don't call plays from a system, they call plays for players. They know if I get the ball to my best players, my most explosive players, more than likely we're going to win this game. So, you know, I've just seen Cam Williams play. So I know that's where my hype. I didn't hear this much prep hype about Tobias coming in. I heard hype once he got on campus during that spring and what was reported and said. And that was from, things that were being heard from coaches and people around the program. So it wasn't like it was something that was hype that people made up. This was coming from the inside. So that's when the buzz really started about Tobias. When you heard that, oh man, he's doing this to the Notre Dame defensive backs in practice. And then the buzz for Tobias really started to build up, right? Cam Williams has been bubbling for almost, at least with Ryan and I, for a year, easily. So I like I said, this is what you see. What you see from Tobias this year is what you see from most freshmen that have high regards in coaching staff. See, if you have a high regard for a player, you don't give him one snap a game. You don't. If that's an explosive guy that you need to get the ball to, you don't give him one snap a game as a staff, right? Because if he's killing in practice, what does that tell the kid? Like, the way for me to get on the field is to kill in practice so I can get more snaps and more opportunities. And then he does that in practice, but yet and still he's not getting the snaps and opportunities. You're failing a young man. You're failing a young man. And you've wasted a full year of development where he could have been more confident going into his sophomore year. And then I question, honestly, the first practice, he was running with the first team. But based upon what? It's a fair question. He was running with the first team based upon what? Because it wasn't based upon what he did in his freshman year, because he didn't even get opportunities. Was it based upon what he did in practice? I don't know if they've really done the right things by him. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I just don't know if they've done the right things by him, right? Because I think positions need to be earned. And I'm not so sure that early in this spring that Tobias earned to run with that first group. Maybe they wanted him to take that next step, but how was he supposed to take that next step? Osmosis?
Right.
Like, you didn't develop him his freshman year. You didn't give him enough opportunities for him to develop on the field. So
it's an interesting point, Sean.
I don't know if you heard what I said. I just think the hype for Cam is just much more than Tobias from a prep standpoint, in my opinion. And I've seen Cam play in person, so I can't speak to who hyped Tobias before he got to Notre Dame.
Yeah, I didn't watch Tobias when he was in high school. I watched his highlights after I was officially with Irish Breakdown. He was already on the team, obviously, so I didn't evaluate him. The things that I think, and because look, I think it's impossible for me to separate Cam to Tobias as prospects. I didn't know anything about Tobias, and I definitely didn't know about him personally. The one thing that I will say about Cam, and again, this is not a comparison to Tobias because I do not know Tobias personally. I want people to understand this. But I've gotten to know Cam a little bit. And Cam, the reason that I think he's going to be a stud is you could watch the film and you could see the explosiveness, the length he has, the body control, the playmaking ability. All that stuff's great, right? A lot of receivers have that, though. What I think separates Cam, in my opinion, kid's confident, man. He's really, really confident in his abilities. And I think that matters. I think it matters. At wide receiver especially, you need to be a competitive dude, man. When that ball's in the air, that's yours. That's yours. Like, there's no doubt about it. So, yeah, I just think that's why I'm confident in Cam Williams. It's not just the talent. I think it's the personality, too, that he brings that I think is going to really translate well to the next level. So,
yeah, wide receiver, and defensive tackle are two positions where I don't mind you being a jerk.
Yeah.
Or
I actually don't mind. I don't mind any position being a jerk other than if it's over the top at quarterback. That's the only spot where I'm like, yeah, if you're a jerk, it's probably too much. Like if you're cocky and confident, I'm good with you. You're cool. You're cool, you know? Like Cam, like CJ Carr has a subtle confidence to him, which is like, cool, swagger, right? Cool.
Yeah.
But then there's jerks. There's Ryan Leaf, right? Like, who are just jerks. They're not like likable people at all. You know what I'm saying? But wide receiver, especially, Sean, I don't care that T.O. said, I love me some me and give me some, get your popcorn ready. I love that stuff, man. I love it. That's great. That's good.
Give me more. Give me more. You know, and every now and then you'll get a Jerry Rice. That is like
humble and
humble and that's fine. A Tim Brown, you'll get those guys every now. But most of the time, if you get a great wide receiver.
And Sean, I would say this, and this is going to be a weird claim to make. I think the only two players of the wide receivers, from my vantage point, right, for the Notre Dame current roster, the only two wide receivers on this roster right now that I say are dog competitors, right? Dogs are Jaden Greathouse and Rico Flores. The only two as true freshmen. That's a problem, man. I know Deion Colsey's been out, but that's been the thing about him over the last couple of years. Is like Deion's incredibly talented, but like, is he a dog though? Like, does he want to be that guy? Does he want to compete to the highest of levels on a snap to snap basis? Does he want to be that guy? I mean, that stuff matters though. It 100% matters.
Ryan, I actually feel good about Deion Colsey going into next year. I feel confident.
I do. Talent wise,
he's on the Javon McKinley, Miles Boykin
track.
Dude, that senior kid that had to deal with injuries or other setbacks, and all of a sudden he just takes off.
6'5" and a freak.
Yeah, 6'5" and a freak. He's right on target for what we've seen traditionally at Notre Dame.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm excited to see some of these young guys mature. I'm excited to see more competitors get into these rooms because there's talent here, folks. It's just about really harnessing it and getting the most out of it. So I'm excited about the future, though. Sean, I had to bring this one up because Tommy Guns gave us a super chat earlier. He literally texted me and said, "You didn't put enough emphasis on my super chat." So fine, Tommy, get it going, baby. From T Guns, happy birthday to the Marines. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, 248 years for the deadliest fighting force in the history of mankind. Rah! Is that good? Was that better?
That's great. Marines always had the best commercials growing up, too, in my opinion.
I agree with those. I
In my
agree with
opinion.
that take. I agree with that take. Tommy, send me another text if you want. Put it in the chat. I hope that was better for you, sir. I hope that you enjoyed that. All right. I hope that was a little more up to your standards, sir. Up to your standards. Thank you for the super chat, though, Tommy. All joking aside for a second. We had another super chat, Sean. Tyler Evans said, "What do you think the percentage of college football fans are rooting for Penn State to beat Michigan this week?" Thank you so much for the super chat, Tyler. What percent, Sean? I would say it's above 70%. I think that people do not like.
It's been really, man, the people I've talked to, man, really don't. I've talked to a lot of people that are pretty much, Michigan needs to pay. And I've talked to a lot of people that are like, man, why is this even a big story? It's, you might be right, though. You might be right.
I think Michigan's a very unlikable program in a lot of ways, because I think there's naysayers out there that are like, they're phonies, right? And then I think it's just the general fans that don't like Michigan. They're a Big Ten school. They're not up to caliber, blah, 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 the narrative stuff. And then also, I think there's other people that are more just like traditional watchers that are like, and they're cheating too, right? So you throw all that together. I think a lot of people are against Michigan this week. I do. I mean, now that story's coming out about a potential punishment coming down right before the game. And it's going to be wild to watch Michigan football over the course of the season, Sean, because I will say this. I think that Michigan should win this football game against Penn State, and I think they should win it somewhat handedly, in my opinion. I predicted 28-17. I can't pick Penn State in big games, man, even at home. I just can't do it at this point. Just can't.
Absolutely not.
But I think that there will be a large contingency of folks that are like, screw Michigan. And just not even Notre Dame fandom. Notre Dame fans, it's about 100%, right? But nationally, say it's 70% are probably rooting against Michigan right now. That's what I would say.
I would agree with that.
All right. Thank you so much for the super chat, Tyler. Very much appreciated as always, my friends. Sure, let's bang through a few more of these before we get out of here. A couple easy ones. Andrew Gilmore just said, any word on the Vegas wide receiver? That's Derek Meadows out of Bishop Gorman, obviously. Is he still interested in Notre Dame? After watching Keon Coleman posterize corners this year, I would love big physical wide receiver. I agree, Andrew. And I think that you need more of those outside threats, obviously. Yes, Notre Dame is still very much in the running here. They are still recruiting Derek Meadows heavily. It's going to be, as it seems now at least, a Notre Dame-Washington battle down until the end. And so it's an interesting conversation because Notre Dame, I think, is the school that Derek Meadows is probably highest on from a personal perspective, right? As far as everything else that comes with it and the feel of the coaches and all that stuff. But Washington also has Rome Odunze and Jalen McMillan and all those guys where it's like, it's a pretty easy sell for a wide receiver, right? So this is going to be a battle, man. It's going to be a battle down to the end, SD.
Man, if we lose this kid to Washington.
Yep.
After interviewing the wide receiver coach. Then losing Tayshawn Lyons to Washington late last year.
Well, in all fairness there, Notre Dame did cool on Tayshawn. I wouldn't say they necessarily lost.
However you want to characterize it, right? Because we both have heard great things about Tayshawn.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That Washington is very excited about Tayshawn Lyons over there. No doubt about that.
And then a guy that we both love, Jason Robinson, going there.
Yep. Another guy that Notre Dame cooled on. Is that what Washington?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. It's kind of a trend, right?
Yes.
I hope.
Well, I don't think they're going to cool on Derek Meadows, though. They're not going to cool on Derek Meadows, but yeah.
But what you just said at the end of what you said is yes. If I had to choose development in a room based upon what I'm seeing, We'll
You pick
see.
Washington. You pick
Yeah.
Washington, yeah. Well, I think the other big thing too, Sean, is I talked about this. I don't know if you were on a show when I said this, but not only is the wide receiver development Washington's favor right now, they also have Roma Dunze, who's their top receiver. That is a Bishop Gorman guy as well. So if and he's also a 6'3" plus talented outside receiver. So it's pretty easy for Washington to be like, hey, Derek, you know how we're going to use you in the offense? Look at the guy that went to the same high school as you right over there, man, that you probably know a little bit at least, right? That's what you're going to be in the college level. It's a very easy sell, man. And then Roma Dunze is probably going to be a first round pick this year. So it's like, be that guy, right? You can be that guy because you literally come from the same background as that guy.
Yeah. I'm trying to convince some fans to Chicago Bear fans to not love Marvin Harrison so much and kind of look at the other really good wide receivers. Like, hey, why don't you take your quarterback and Joe Alt? How about that? How about get your quarterback and get him a left tackle? And then get one of the other really good wide receivers that are not Marvin Harrison, because they're really good. But hey.
Yes. Marvin Harrison's really good though, man.
No,
really
look,
good.
I understand. I'm just saying, if you're gonna get a quarterback, protect that dude, because you don't have a left tackle right now. That's all I'm saying.
I got that. Yeah. No, I definitely get that, man. I definitely get that. Sean, I'm going to bang through a couple more of these, and I got a good one for you waiting. So Brandon Plesner said, so where does Isaiah Campbell fit in here? So Brandon, strong side defensive ends, right? Big ends. I think the potential there. I also would say this, though, is that I wouldn't be shocked if Isaiah Campbell wanted to come to Notre Dame, because he's already over 270 pounds now. He's not 250 like he's listed on the recruiting profiles. Could Isaiah Campbell be a interior player eventually for you? Possible, right? And so I think that I think there's a spot for Isaiah Campbell if they make headway with him in Wake Forest and they get in good with him. So we'll see. All right, and then we had another question about about defensive end recruiting. 99 problems with BK1 just said, is Christopher Burgess being recruited as a Viper or a big end by Notre Dame? He is a big end in Notre Dame's system. That is how they like him. We had Brandon Plesner again. I'm just banging out a few of these easy ones, Sean, real quick. Does Dominic Hulak's commitment affect Notre Dame's recruitment of Marco Jones? I feel like they are similar players position-wise. Brandon, no, actually, they don't view those guys as the same at all. They view Dominik Hulak as a true, not tweener, but like a versatile move guy, right? Like he's going to play linebacker. Think of him like if this was about 10 years ago, Sean, Dominik Hulak would be viewed as a Sam linebacker at Notre Dame, a Sam linebacker that can also come in and like under and over fronts and play on the line of scrimmage. That's how Dominik Hulak could be viewed. Marco Jones is viewed as a true inside linebacker that can make plays from the inside out. So it doesn't affect it at all. They are very different players according to Notre Dame, at least. And I actually agree. I would use Marco Jones a lot differently than Dominik Hulak. Just my opinion, though. We had Here's Sean. I don't know how much you can add to this. I certainly can't add too much. Iris Gordy Knott says, just curious if either of you follow Notre Dame men's basketball recruiting and how you're feeling about the program in general. Sean, you follow this a lot closer than I do, my friend. So I will let you take this one.
It's funny because Malik actually asked me the same question earlier today. And my response to Malik was, if Shrewsbury can recruit a team that was literally on the doorstep of getting to the Final Four to Penn State, he can recruit basketball players to Notre Dame. And see, unlike Notre Dame football, the state of Indiana is a hotbed for basketball. So your recruiting base is much better. And the transfer portal is far more impactful in college basketball. I mean, it's impactful in football, but I mean, it's still 22 players.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
It was like Keon Coleman didn't just walk in, and change a team that was like 1-9 or 1-11. I mean, Florida State was ascending, and he just kind of put them over the top. Yep. So in basketball, you can transform a program with like one guy transferring in. And that is something. Look, Notre Dame is offensively, when they get his guys in the system, which will probably take. They're going to be one of the best offensive teams in the ACC. He's an NBA guy. If you go watch, I told people this earlier this week, just go watch his ATOs from the game earlier this week. He's a fabulous in-game coach. Fabulous in-game coach. He has a really nice staff, and he's going to be able to attract the local talent in Indiana, which is always fruitful on the hardwood. And eventually he's going to have his guys that fit his system. It's always going to be about defense and rebounding. That's it. If Notre Dame defends and rebounds, they're going to be in pretty good shape under Coach Shrewsbury. So, but I like this class because this class is like a foundational class. And then the next year, you'll see like the class that's like transitional. Like this is the class that's going to transition us. You know, I know he's on two kids already in the 26th class that he's already offered from Chicago that are like top 100 players in the nation. So, yeah.
I will say this, Sean. I did watch a little bit of their first game. I know it was just Niagara, but that little freshman point guard, man, the Burton kid or whatever, yeah, man, he's pretty good. Good little ball player, man. He's pretty good. He had a great first game. Really good first game. So
yeah, and it's basketball just hits different. Double R, like the NIL packages are different. It's much more of a level playing field.
Yeah,
you know, from the NIL standpoint.
Because Notre Dame can't sell the 4 for $40 as easily in basketball because not many kids stay around for 4 years. You know what I mean?
No.
Like, that's just not. That's just
their own players haven't been staying around. You know, they just had a kid leave after his freshman year. So,
yep, you're no doubt about that. All right, we're winding down here. There's a lot of great questions in here. I'll try to get to as many as we can. 99 Problems BK1 just said, Ryan, is Dominik Hulak comparable to Preston Zinter? In the sense that they're 6'3" and could play middle linebacker potentially, 99 Problems, yes. I think that the comparison I think that you're trying to make is that we've often talked about, like, if Preston Zinter had to play edge, he had to play Viper, he could do it, right? I would say, though, is that I think Dominik Hulak's a much more natural Viper on the next level because he's literally played that position. The Preston Zinter stuff, he played it a little bit in high school on ball, but like he was more of an off-ball linebacker that was just working up, right? I think that he is more a guy that's projectable, potentially the Viper, but I think Hulak is legitimately a Viper. And honestly, if both those kids were on the same team and you ran a 4-3 base and you didn't play a ton of sub, I think that you would play Preston Zinter and Mike, and you would put Dominik Hulak as a Sam linebacker. So just a little bit different, but functionally similar-ish. I can get there to the question. I can get there. All right, we had Sean. We just had a question, a comment here, which I think was during the Sean Sevano interview, which I thought was very spot on. Michael Peak said, "Guys, the team I've watched needs more attitude. Hars-nosed, Quentin Nelson types. We have a team loaded with great young men with awesome personalities, but not a lot of tough guy attitude." I actually don't disagree with this, man. I think they need a little bit more swagger on this team, I think. A little bit.
I was about to say that because it doesn't necessarily have to be tough guy attitude.
Yeah.
It just needs to be attitude, right?
Okay.
Those are the type of teams where you see really great competition.
Sure.
Right? Like, dude, like, all right, I know you're All-American, but I'm good too. What's up? You know, but there's a respect, but there's a healthy competition as well.
Yep. I would agree there. 100% agree. All right. So we had some more here. But Michael, I think you're spot on to a lot of things that 100% there. Brennan Plensner says, is Notre Dame still looking to take 3 defensive linemen in the 2025 cycle? Because they still want Damian Shanklin at Viper, then Burgess at strong side defensive end. And I'd argue they need another interior defensive lineman, defensive tackle. Brandon, we talked about it. So I think in total, Notre Dame's going to end up taking 6 defensive linemen in the 2025 class. I think that's the number, right? So you have 2 guys that Notre Dame projects in the interior. They do. Davion Dixon, obviously, but I think that long-term, they think Joseph Reif's going to be an interior player, similar to what Riley Mills has become for Notre Dame. So you have 2 there. You have CJ May. I think that they will definitely push for Damian Shanklin. I think they will definitely push for obviously Christopher Burgess, and then maybe Dominik Hulak ends up as a defensive end as well. But regardless, I think that 6 will ultimately be the number.
And for like we said earlier, for Notre Dame, it's not as simple as we need 3 defensive tackles. Let's go get guys that are ready, set, go. That are 300 pounds now. It's like the recruiting is different for Notre Dame. So, the projectables, like a Reef, like you spoke about, and they're more concerned with being able to be multiple and versatile. And, that's just the way it is. And the transfer portal changes things as well, right? Because you don't know who you might lose in the program, next year or even this off season. So that comes into play.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that are going to come into play. Apologies, folks. My mic's going to sound a little bit different down the stretch here. So here's my issue that I'm working with today, Sean, just for people that understand the clarity. I hope you can hear me. Hopefully that you're able to hear me right now. So for whatever reason, my one port on my laptop is not working today. So my one port is designated for my microphone. The other port is designated for my charger. And right now, only one is working. So I had to make some decisions here, man. It was either let the thing die and end the podcast early, or go to a different microphone and we're going to finish out the podcast so I don't cut you guys short on a Friday. So again, apologies for the microphone issue. Don't give me a bad review on Apple Podcasts or anything because I had to switch over the microphone. I made this decision for you guys. I'm here for you all, okay? I just want people to know that, Sean. I'm here for the long haul, baby. Here for the long haul. I roll with the punches. Have some swagger to me, man. Have some swagger here. But yeah, honestly, if anybody wants to send me a new laptop, I'll send you my address. All right. I'll send you somebody else's address near me so you don't have my actual address, and I'll go pick it up off the doorstep. All right. Next one, Sean. Next one. Never go out your real address, man. What are we, stupid? We're not stupid around here. T Guns question. Guys, do you all realize that our tax dollars pay the people that come up with highway message signs? That's nuts. I don't know why this is a mailbag question, but Tommy wants to put it in there. Sure, Tommy. Yeah, it is kind of nuts when you think about it, but we don't talk about stuff like that on this podcast, man. What are you doing? What are you doing? It's a different podcast, I think. But thanks, Tommy, as always. You keep this very light conversation up here, man. 99 problems with PK ain't one. In the world of no limits free agency, aka the transfer portal, you have to over-recruit position groups every year. Someone will inevitably transfer every year at most positions. We've talked about this, Sean. Your opinion. I want to get your opinion on this.
Well, it is different. I agree. If you are a state institution where the requirements to actually be admitted to the school are much easier than Notre Dame. Unfortunately, the transfer portal is similar to recruiting at Notre Dame. It's limited guys in the portal that actually fit the profile of Notre Dame from an academic standpoint and how they accept transfers. And it's one of those things that I wish that they would kind of help the program. But, Notre Dame is Notre Dame. So in theory, I totally agree. But the case is a little bit more difficult for Notre Dame because of some of the hurdles that some of the young men in the transfer portal, have, getting admitted to Notre Dame. Take, for instance, the Fisk kid. That just happened to be like this kid grew up in the shadows of Notre Dame Stadium, smart kid. But he just ends up choosing Florida State. So, but that was like an opportunity where it's like, okay, this is a perfect fit. This fits perfectly, geographically, culturally, everything. And, the young man just decided to go elsewhere. But
yeah,
I'm not sure how much, I don't think Keon Coleman was really in play for Notre Dame. I'm trying to think of another. I'm not sure if Jared Verse was, really in play. It's you get these top they're not really in play for Notre Dame. They're just not. But you have to be pleased. Thomas Harper has played well when he's been healthy, for the most part. He's played well. So that was a successful transfer. That was a successful transfer.
I think Notre Dame needs to continue to use the transfer portal the way that they have, but maybe an uptick in certain situations. Sean, I think that the question is making a great point of, like, from a high school recruiting side, though, with rosters being in flux constantly and guys potentially leaving, I do think you over recruits, but not over recruit in a sense of like taking every commitment that is out there, right? But over recruit as in, if you have a position, you hit a need, keep talking to some other kids you like just in case a roster spot does open, right? Like, keep talking to those kids. So, yeah, I think that relationship and that foresight with making sure that you are continuing to work a board even after you have the numbers. Because, like, I could talk to, let's use wide receiver, for instance, right, in his class. You have 3 wide receivers in 2024, Cam Williams, Micah Gilbert, Logan Saldata. You hit your numbers, right? But with what numbers could change so quickly, if I was Notre Dame, I would keep talking to another receiver or two in the 2024 class just in case a number opens up, right? Just in case a number opens up. I really think that you need to be able to do that and just kind of have a little bit of foresight with understanding that roster spots just come open so quick, man. There's guys that transfer every year or get injured every year that you weren't anticipating. Like, you had no idea that was going to happen, but it happens.
Especially with, going back to the high schoolers, man, there are going to be coaches that leave programs before signing day and take other jobs. And now you have these kids that committed to a program and a head coach that are possible flips, right? You have to bring that into play as well. So I agree.
Yep, and we'll see how Notre Dame continues to navigate the transfer portal. It's going to be very interesting moving forward. We had another question here, Sean. Oh, I just want to bang this one out because it's just a quick answer. So Captain Suburbia says, is Nathaniel Marshall not high on Notre Dame's board, or is Notre Dame not big on his list? No, Notre Dame had kind of cut that recruitment short early on because it's just not a good fit. So, yeah, there's a fit issue there, and we'll leave it at that. If you want to know the fit issue, you can ask somebody at Notre Dame or Nathaniel Marshall that question. But yeah, that's not a recruitment that's going to happen. So.
Hey, you can't knock the hustle, man.
You cannot knock the hustle.
You cannot knock the hustle.
Can't do it, man. Good player too, by the way. Very good player. Jordan Pinero says, how concerned are we that Al Golden might take an NFL defensive coordinator job this offseason, Sean? Are you concerned?
No. I am not concerned because, and I think it's very viable, and I think it's something Marcus Freeman is possibly anticipating and getting ready for. I mean, he was asked about Coach Mickens, possibly being a DC in the future. And I think that's someone that he would be comfortable, whether it is, as DC or bringing somebody else in that he could work with, So I think it's something that has been in Marcus Freeman's mind, knowing that Al Golden has those aspirations, right? When you sit with people and you interview them, that's one of the biggest questions. Like, what's your 5-year plan? Like, I don't think that changes. Like, you sit down with a guy and it's like, man, do you have plans, beyond here? And I'm sure they've had that conversation. So it's Marcus Freeman's job to be prepared for it. So no, I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned at all.
I'm not concerned at all either, Sean, because Marcus Freeman knows defensive football, right? Am I concerned that Marcus Freeman is going to bring another defensive coordinator in here? I am not. I think that he will. I have confidence that will happen. I will also say, I think graduating up, quote unquote, is a good thing also for position coaches of the future. To see a defensive coordinator at college level maybe get a defensive coordinator job in the NFL, like that's a big promotion, man. Like, cool. That's very nice as far as like the attractiveness. But I overall, I'm not concerned in the sense that I think whoever the next defensive coordinator will be at Notre Dame would be very well equipped to be that, because we have issues with the offensive coaching staff at Notre Dame right now and what's the play calling going to be and all that type of stuff. But I'm not concerned about Marcus Freeman finding a good defensive coordinator at Notre Dame, because that's the side of the ball that he knows as well as anyone, right? Like he knows defensive football. So we had a question from Archer that I think was kind of interesting, Sean, that kind of works off of this, which has been a topic a lot lately. So Archer said, if Al Golden does leave, do you promote Mike Mickens or do a national search? Very interesting.
Mike Mickens is a part of a national search.
100%. Yep.
He's part of a national search.
I would interview. I mean, look, guys, like I don't know who Notre Dame would even target because the position is not open. So like they're not thinking about this right now, right? But like if it would be a national search for me. I'd be interviewing guys like Joe Rossi. I'd be interviewing guys like Jim Leonard. I would be interviewing guys like Mike Mickens. You do the national search, but ultimately I can't really answer this question as far as who I think it would be, Archer, because look, Marcus Freeman seems to have a lot of confidence in Mike Mickens as a defensive mind. So if he thinks he's ready, he thinks he's ready. I don't know Mike Mickens. I've never seen him call a defense. Maybe he'll be great. Maybe he won't be. Maybe he's just a really great defensive back coach. I don't know ultimately. But I do think you do national search. And then if Mike Mickens is the guy, Mike Mickens is the guy. Like that's just what it is. Like if you interview, Sean, let's say you interview Mike Mickens, Joe Rossi, and Jim Leonard, let's say that's your final three or whatever. And you come across and you're like, you know what? Mike Mickens was the best one in my opinion. Then great. That's awesome. That means that you did your due diligence and Mike Mickens was the guy, man. That's your guy. You know what I mean? So I'm happy with it, man. I'd be happy with it.
Totally agree.
All right. Oh, man, we got a lot of rumors coming out here, Sean. Apparently someone said that Jalen Daniels from Kansas is possibly transferring to USC. Apparently, well, is this real or is this all a joke? Someone just said that Malachi Nelson announced he's entering the transfer portal. Oh, no, I think that was a joke off of the Jalen Daniels news. I think
we don't even know if Lincoln Riley is going to be at USC. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to watch that, man. I have no idea what's going to happen with that program if Lincoln Riley leaves, too. Like, who do they turn to after that? I'm not sure. Not sure. All right, we have another one from Fighting Irish 86. Ryan, do you think once Jack Swarbrick steps down, Marcus Freeman will be able to recruit top-tier talent and hire the coaches, coordinators he wants to? He's already hiring top-tier talent. I mean, he's already recruiting top-tier talents, Fighting Irish. I don't think that's an issue. I think that the issue that we hyper-focus on is, and this is obviously spurring off of Dominik Hulak, is people think that Dominik Hulak, Sean, is the number one defensive end in the 2025 class for Notre Dame, where it's like, guys, he's probably going to end up being like the third defensive end in the class if he does end up as a Viper. Like, I think some context to those types of questions.
Right.
I think that Marcus Freeman will be able to target just about any coordinator coach that he wants to, right? Yeah. My question has always been with the administration, though, is will they back him enough in the big situations to get stuff done? That was the thing with Andy Ludwig. Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman was allowed to interview Andy Ludwig, and they did, right? But the question was, when it was time to pony up the dough, were you going to back your guy to get your guy? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's my question with the administration. That's my question. So, all right. All right, we had another question here as well. Great questions, guys. Really, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark, so we're going to be out of here kind of soon. Archer452 said, with Deuce Knight being the driving force of the offensive class in 2025, who is, or you think will be, the driving force for the defensive side of the class? I have an answer here, Sean. I have an answer.
Yeah, I mean, I said it last week. One of my answers is not in the class yet, officially. But then, I think kind of similar to the personality Sean Sevillano has, Davion Dixon is, that type of guy too. Just attitude, jovial kid. But I'm interested in hearing what you have to say.
I think the answer for me right now, and this is barring, anything that happens as far as who comes into the class next or in the near future, whatever, I think it's CJ May, Sean. I think it's CJ May because I think in order to be the driving force of a class, there's a couple things you need, right? One, You need a name. You need
Mhm.
notoriety behind you.
Facts.
You need to play a big-time position. And I also think that you need a personality. And I think that CJ May has all of those things. He is a big-time pass rusher from the state of Alabama, pretty highly ranked kid, consensus 4-star across the board. And by the way, he's a very good and well-spoken kid, right? He is funny. He has good energy. I think he can be attractive for other recruits that want to come play potentially for Notre Dame. So my answer would be CJ May on the defensive side of the ball. That's who I see.
I rock with that.
All right. Man, great question though, Archer. Honestly, very good question. 99 Problems became one with a two-parter. Said, Mailbag, let's be real. The people behind website recruiting rankings are going to get the obvious ones right most of the time, but they will miss more than they hit in total. The question is this. Do you trust the staff more than you trust the person behind the On3 247 Rivals ESPN recruiting rankings? Previous staffs, maybe not. This staff, 100%.
Let me ask you this question, Ryan. Is
Yes.
this line? I'll ask you this question and it will answer everything or just kind of piggyback on everything 99 Problems just said. Name me the position room that's not in better shape than when Brian Kelly left under Marcus Freeman.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I mean, cornerback's in a better spot. Safety's about the same, I guess, but like still, yeah. Linebacker's in a better spot.
Mm-hmm.
Defensive line's in a better spot
Mm-hmm.
than the last Kelly team anyway. I mean, there were some good years under Kelly, obviously, defensive line-wise, but since he left, yes. Offensive line-wise, that's a conversation, I guess. Talent acquisition was not a problem under Jeff Quinn, in my opinion, the last couple of years. So maybe offensive line, tight
end. There's been a switch in like recruiting philosophy, if we can put it like that. It seems.
I agree there. Yep.
So that yes, you can definitely question. Yes, but I mean, you still have last year's class, which was a different philosophy. That's still locked in. So it's
right.
You're going to be hard pressed to find a position room that's not in better shape under Marcus Freeman and his staff.
Agree. And obviously quarterback is in a much better spot than it was the last couple of years there as well. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, no, I think 99 Problems to the question, and I think you already answered it obviously for yourself. For me, yes, I trust the staff more than recruiting rankings of those sites. I also trust myself more than those recruiting sites, right? So I'm going to watch the film, and guys, I know that some people say there's like spin and stuff, but like, do you think I spin? Like, do I honestly spin recruits? I feel like I tell it very how it is, man. If I'm not big on a kid, I'll tell you. If I think it's a little bit of an early take, I'll tell you. If I think it's a great take, I'll tell you. I mean, I literally told you that, like, based upon sophomore film, I was not juiced about Dominik Hulak committing. But then I watched the junior tape, and I'm like, okay, cool. I can get there. That's fine. I'm good with it.
And for me, it was like personal conversation. It really wasn't about the tape, right? Because I was like, okay, he's solid. And like I said, I started talking to coaches and people that have played against him. And it's like, okay. Like, cool. I'm looking forward to watching him play next year. Up close and personal. I really am.
Yep. It's going to be interesting, man. I'm very interested to see what this roster looks like next year, just in the short term, right? We're going to talk about transfer portal all the time, right? But, like, it's going to be interesting this offseason, man, because, like, quarterback, do you do it? Wide receiver, do you add someone? Safety, do you add someone? There's going to be a couple needs on the roster, and I'm interested to see just kind of how what the makeup of this team is. But, yeah. But from a high school recruiting perspective, I trust the staff. If Marcus Freeman doesn't work out, Sean, I'll put it like this. If Marcus Freeman doesn't work out, whoever the next coach in Notre Dame is going to walk in and be like, oh, I got some guys to work with here, man. Like, there's some talent here, right? Like, they're in a good spot there as far as from a talent perspective. We already answered this one. I'll get rid of that one then. Sean, A game was played last night. Louisville ended up beating Virginia. I believe they are 9-1 on the season now, Louisville. So NC Notre Dame fan just said, with Louisville going to the ACC title game, does losing to them look bad now?
Absolutely 100% yes.
I agree. It's still bad. Yeah. Because you were the more talented team at the end of the day. You were the more talented team against a team with a first-year head coach. You should have beaten Louisville. Yes, you should have beaten Louisville. From a national perspective, I'm sure some people will be like, oh, Notre Dame just lost to a really good team that day, which isn't necessarily wrong, but that doesn't make the fact that Notre Dame should have won against Louisville less of an, like, yes, they should have beaten Louisville. So, yeah.
That's the only, because people have been critical of the offensive line. That's the only game on the schedule that you can point to and say the offensive line did not give us a chance to win. I didn't say they played great. I'm not talking about their grade. That's the only game where I can honestly say, okay, they didn't give you a chance to win. The ACC stinks. Yes, it still looks bad. Going to the ACC championship game, what does that mean? ACC is a bad football conference. Bad. You watched that game last night and see this dude. I love that. How is it, Calandria?
Michael Calandria, yeah.
Calandria?
Freshman quarterback.
Love, dude. That kid is fearless. And
yes, he is.
He's fearless, man. He's fearless. And if they had coached better, they would have probably held on to that lead in the fourth quarter.
Yes. Sean, he has some jaw-dropping moments, the Calandria kid. But then he has some bozo in him too right now because he's a freshman, right? He's going to make some bozo plays where you're like, brother, right? Chill out, man. Chill out.
But
yeah.
you live with that because you know what he is. He's a playmaker. And that's what you need in your program. That's what Notre Dame is missing.
Afraid.
Notre Dame has really good football players. They're missing playmakers, specifically on offense. It's at where you need them, right? And that's the difference, man. No, people are like, man, you got to respect Louisville. I don't have to respect Louisville.
I respect Louisville. That doesn't mean that they should beat me, though.
You do. I don't. They're all right. They're all right. Somebody in the chat said y'all expected to win a game. Man, we played them again. I would expect Notre Dame to win.
Oh no, I kicked that kid out. He's a Clemson fan that was just trolling us, Sean. So I kicked him out. Whatever.
I do. If we play Clemson again, I would expect to win the game.
100%. Yeah.
It's like, dude, Notre Dame. This has been one of the most underwhelming Notre Dame teams in my fandom.
Yeah. You're not wrong. Sean, you know your respect thing just made me think of. I was listening to the radio earlier, and this one guy took a caller, and they were having like a good back and forth, and the caller was finally like, "I guess we'll have to agree to disagree." He's like, "Nope, I don't have to agree to that." He's like, "You're wrong. I'm right." I was like, "That's fantastic. I never heard anyone say that before." That was so funny, man. It was great.
It's like, dude, that the ACC is awful as a conference.
Yep.
Awful. That's it. So, no. This team lost to Pitt. Us losing to them is nowhere near as embarrassing than the fact that they lost to Pitt. So, no, I don't respect it. This is me because I just love elite team. I love great programs. No, I don't respect anybody that lost to that Pitt team. No, I don't. Sorry. I just don't.
Oh man, yeah, that had me crying in the car, man. I dropped off my girls to daycare, and I was just like, literally to a caller. He's like, "Nope, I don't have to agree to that." Like, oh my gosh. Can you imagine if like we were having a back and forth and you said, I guess we'll agree to disagree. And I was like, nope, I don't agree. I'm like, what?
Is that what inspired
Sorry,
your
man.
radio? Is that what inspired your radio tweet this morning?
No, man. No, I just genuinely have always wanted to do a radio show, and that's something that is not on my resume. Two things I've always wanted to do, Sean: a radio show. The other thing is to be a color commentator for a football game. Just one time.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a color commentator full time, but like just one time would be dope. I think I would do a pretty good job at it too, man, because I have some weird knowledge of players, and you know what I mean. Like, I think I'd be all right with that. But, yeah.
People make something. It's funny when people actually like rebuttal something, and the rebuttal is like that. Dude, no one respects the Denver Broncos. Like, what's your point? Yes, the Broncos beat the Chiefs, and they still garner no respect as a team across the NFL. They're a horrible football team. What's your point? Just because Louisville beat Notre Dame, I don't have to respect them. They're a mid football team. Mid. That's probably going to get exposed if they go to the NY6. Because you know why? They're going to end up playing Oklahoma, Texas, or somebody really good, and they're going to get their butt kicked. And then you're going to be like, oh, what happened to Louisville? Oh, they actually played somebody that played up to their standard.
Hey, man, I'll give something credit, though. I'll give something credit. Jeff Brom has done a great job. He's got Jack Plummer as quarterback, Sean, and they're still 9-1, brother. Like, that's pretty good, dude. Yeah.
We didn't need to see Jeff Brom. Jeff Brom walked in Notre Dame Stadium twice.
I know.
And scared Notre Dame with mid quarterbacks. We knew Jeff Brom was a great coach before he went to Louisville. That we didn't need to see him at Louisville to know if he actually got some talent, that he could do some things. Like,
yeah,
that's not shocking.
Mm-hmm.
That's not shocking at all. It's not.
Sean, we'll have to agree to disagree. Nope, I don't have to agree to that. Next up. Oh my gosh, I love that. Next time, if I'm going to do that to Brian next time, and I'm not going to tell him about it. If he ever says like I'm going to have to agree to disagree, and I'm just like, nope, I don't accept that, and just see what he says. I think he'll probably slap me, but yeah. Jordan Pinero with the question: would you rather take a kid who's middle of the pack at a high school like Don Bosco or IMG, or a dominant kid from a tiny town that plays inferior competition? I mean, so my first question here, Jordan, because it's an interesting question, would be this player in the same situation, right? These two players I'm talking about, are they the same caliber of football player? Because if they're the same caliber of football player, I'll take the kid from Don Bosco or IMG Academy, personally. I would. Because if they're similar athletes and similar players and similar prospects, but they've been used to playing other great schools, like Bosco plays, like IMG plays, similar to the Jaden Greathouse effect that we were talking about, the Cooper Flanagan effect, the Rico Flores effect, I will defer to going to the player that is more used to playing great competition, if that makes sense.
See, it depends for me. It depends. It depends on the program. It depends on, the fit. The small town kid could have a crazy amount of dog in him because he comes from that small town, right?
Yeah.
Constantly trying to prove that he belongs. And then the kid from Bosco or IMG could be flat out lazy. That's why he's middle of the pack at that school. Has all the physical talent in the world, just kind of floating on the fact that he goes to Bosco and IMG, and people are always around recruiting. So
yeah,
it depends on the situation.
I could dig that. Sean, I am going to get this one up. I'm going to let you rock, and I will be back in about 10 seconds. All right, here we go. Next question from Iris Gordy. Now it says, if Tyler Buckner wanted to transfer back to Notre Dame, but knew that he would only be a backup, would you accept him back, Sean?
No, because I think it's only right that the kid gets the opportunity to go somewhere where he can play. At this point, he's probably not going to play at. We talked to Shane Walton, which was former Notre Dame player, which was his high school coach, and has been his confidant during the transfer process and continues to be his confidant. So, no, I think that ship has sailed. And Tyler Buckner, all these kids deserve to go find a place where they can play. Just plain and simple. I would take Tyler Buckner at Illinois as a quarterback. Um, I probably a couple of spots in the Big Ten that he could go. And would it be more attractive with the West Coast schools coming into the Big Ten for him to go to a Big Ten school? Possibly. I don't see if he couldn't get it done in Alabama. I don't see him going to an SEC school. Is there an ACC school that he could possibly transfer to? But a lot of these ACC schools have a lot of young quarterbacks, though. I love the Virginia Tech kid, the transfer.
Drones from Baylor.
I love him.
Yep.
The Calandria kid, the Wake Forest kid. He's a young kid, but I think he's going to end up being a pretty good replacement for Hartman. The ACC schools have a lot of young kids that they're probably going to allow. Like Florida State might be the only program that's really, Riley Leonard more than likely comes back. We've had that discussion. Jeff Brom is the coach, so whatever quarterback Louisville gets is going to be able to.
They got the what was the kid's name that was at Purdue with him? That was an Indiana kid, I believe. The tall kid that is there. He transferred over. I can't remember his name, but he was a pretty highly ranked kid. I think he was a 4-star kid. So they have something. And I trust. And they also have Pierce Clarkson that was from St. John Bosco, who's a pretty talented player. So Louisville will be fine at quarterback. They'll be fine.
They'll be. I mean, that's his position. They'll be fine at quarterback. Heck, Aiden O'Connell was in the NFL, man. Like,
yes.
Yo.
Starting in the NFL, winning football games in the NFL.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I don't think Buckner should go to Stanford. Stanford, and they don't have an affiliation to the Power 5 right now.
It's a tough spot to be in right now.
Yes, that's a tough spot to be in. Like I said,
also their quarterback's shown some flashes too. The Ashton Daniels kid, he's still young too. I think he's only a sophomore. So
Tyler Buckner is originally from Chicago. Tyler Buckner needs to go to a Big Ten team.
Iowa?
No, I wouldn't go that. No. He can go to Illinois. He can definitely go to Illinois.
You don't like your new transfer this offseason, the Ole Miss kid? Yeah.
No. Turns the ball over. I mean, heck, Tyler turned the ball over too. So, I mean,
Sean, quite simply. Yeah, no, you finish. My bad.
No, I'm just saying more opportunities probably in the Big Ten.
It's possible. Quite simply to the question, IGK, would I take Tyler Buckner back? No, I wouldn't. Even if he's okay with being a backup, just wouldn't. Look, I think that for, I don't want to say forgiveness because I think that's too hard of a word here. I'm not saying forgive Tyler Buckner. But what I am saying is that I think that people, when they make decisions, they have to live with those decisions, right? Like, I don't want to give guys mulligans all the time, right? And he made his decision. He went to a different school, and you had to change your approach from the quarterback position. You had to pick your pieces up, and you had to keep moving. And I don't think it makes sense. I don't. I would. Yeah, I also think that it gives, I won't say a bad look to the program, Sean, but I think that like opening up your doors again to a kid that left and now wants to come back, I think that sets a weird precedent. Like it sets a little bit of a weird precedence, in my opinion, as far as like you can leave a football team and then come back when you want to. Like, I don't know, man. I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't do it. I'd rather roll with the young kids. And if you need to take a transfer quarterback this offseason, get someone that's fresh and has no association with the program and let them kind of get intertwined there, right? Like
I think this is my personal opinion.
Yep.
I think Tommy Rees screwed 2 quarterbacks in one offseason. Okay. That's my personal opinion. Right? Because Tommy Rees was the one that had the vision for how he was going to transition Sam Hartman. It was his vision. He went in and sold Marcus Freeman like, this is the guy. I got the perfect plan for him. Because I'm sure Marcus Freeman said, like he's been in a slow mesh. How is it going to work? How are you going to get him to come over to our system? Is he going to be able to work? And Tommy Rees had the vision. and now you bounce, and there's nobody else in the building that has the vision.
Right.
This goes back to the conversations we've had. Like, yo, he didn't just become what we see right now. Like, yo, yeah, honestly, he's played bad.
Yep.
That's just accountability. Same thing you talked about with Tyler's decision. But and then I think Tyler calls and talks to Tommy, and Tommy not really having a handle on the quarterback room and what's there.
Yeah.
It's like, yo, you got a really good shot down here. But not understanding that Jalen Milroe, regardless of what you think about him, is very respected in that locker room. So you're not only trying to beat him out on the field, you have to beat him out in that locker room. Whereas you had a situation where, honestly, if you stay in Notre Dame, you might have entered games. You might have entered the Louisville game and started the next week. Like Sam Hartman has struggled. Like, this might be your team right now at quarterback. So, you're better off if you had stayed at Notre Dame. So it is, I think Tommy, not saying that that's what he purposed to do. I just think he sold the vision to Sam and then bounced, and then he sold something to Tyler that might not have been realistic, in my opinion.
Yeah. So we're on the same page though, Sean. I don't think that there was a bridge back to Tyler Buchner in my reality. I don't think there is. So, all right, a couple more questions. We'll get out of here. I gotta go pick up the girls. By the way, Sean, I am solo the next 3 days, by the way, until Sunday, man. Solo.
Yeah, you told me.
Solo, man. Archer452, if the Big Ten gives Jim Harbaugh a 3-game suspension effectively immediately, do you think that's an appropriate response to the current status of the situation allegations?
No.
I think it's kind of weak, to be honest. I think it's like very, yeah.
It's light. But I don't agree with, if they're going to suspend him on Monday. Like, I don't like that dropping it on Friday, and if he's on the plane to Penn State now, he's got to get on a plane coming back. I don't like that. Don't screw with them the night before their game. I don't rock with that. Tell him Monday, which means he misses the last 2 games in the Big Ten championship. In my opinion, that hurts more. The Big Ten championship being one of the games he misses. Well, no, it really doesn't hurt, because the Big Ten West team they'll face stinks. Will be a bad team or an average team. But either way, I think it needs to be more games. And I think it needs to be a hefty fine.
Yeah.
And somebody said this. What do you think about this, Ryan? I heard somebody say this. Take their CFP revenue. That means if they make the college football playoff, the revenue they would get from it, take it and divvy it up amongst the rest of the Big Ten teams. Don't allow them to benefit financially from the CFP. You can still play. You can still have a shot at the national championship, but we're gonna tax you as the Big Ten conference. I thought that was pretty. I was like, okay, that, whatever that is, that might be something I'm open to.
It's gonna be interesting to see, man. I just think that Sean, I feel like the Big Ten's just trying to make a quick decision, but like it's not a well thought out one. Like, it's just, look, at the end of the day, Michigan is going to be punished. They should be punished, but I think the Big Ten is not having the most well thought out response of all time. That's kind of my thought process on it. So,
well, you know why? I truly believe, what is his name? Tony Petitti? Is that the new commissioner?
I'm not sure what his name is.
I think
I'm
it's
not
Tony Petitti. Has a brand new Big Ten that they have to launch next year with the addition of the 4 teams coming from the Pac-12. Do you want this hovering over that launch of the new Big Ten next year, whether it be the Big Ten or the NCAA? And then who's to say that Jim Harbaugh is even there as the head coach next year? Who's to say he doesn't take an NFL job? So now who do you punish? Do you punish the new coach? Do you take the wins away from the kids? I think he is trying to say, if it's going to be settled, let me dead it now.
Yeah.
Let me dead this now. Clear the decks for what we're doing as a conference next year, going into expansion, and we won't have to deal with that. It'll be over. Suspension, fine, and then whatever people want to say about it is cool. His job is to make sure that the Big Ten is good moving forward. And maybe he's thinking that the best course of action is to make a decision now and deal with it.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting, man. I hate Michigan, so I hope they get screwed over either way, but yeah. Two questions left, Sean. Ghost X says, is it imperative that Marcus Freeman decides what he wants to do with the offensive philosophy before the bowl game to let whoever comes in have an impact on the 2024-2025 classes? I don't think so.
Look, give me playmakers over philosophy. I can put playmakers in 90% of the offensive philosophies and win games. Trevor Lawrence could have played in just about any offensive philosophy.
Yeah.
You know, you give me playmakers, the philosophy is
great. The initiative, from my opinion, that was a terrible. I was stuttering there for a second. The initiative here, Sean, in my opinion, is as a program developer, you're trying to find players that fit multiple philosophies and systems, right?
Yeah.
That's guys that can fit into multiple ways. I know it's not easy. I know it's not always coherent to go that way, but I do think, like in the NFL draft space, Sean, like I always value guys that have position flexibility or they have scheme versatility, right?
Yeah.
Guys that can fit into multiple things. Other guys, doesn't mean they can't be successful, but that does mean that they are a little bit limited to one style, which again doesn't make you better or worse, as long as you're not. I like Trayvon Diggs is a perfect example for the Cowboys, right? Trayvon Diggs is only a good corner in one particular system. The good thing for him is the team that runs that system drafted him, right? But if I threw him onto a defense that likes to run a lot of press man and just true man concepts, not a cover 3 heavy scheme that Dan Quinn runs, he's not going to be nearly as good, right?
Yeah.
But you know who would be very good in that system?
Yeah.
Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey would also be great in a cover 3 system. He'd also be great in a cover 2. He'd also be great in a off man. He can do whatever the heck he wants. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to find those players that I think transcend scheme, if that makes sense. So,
and like, look, somebody in the chat just said Notre Dame needs to develop playmakers. You can't depend on developing playmakers, man. At some point, you have to find guys that come in and do.
Just our guys.
Michael Floyd was a playmaker before he got to Notre Dame. Notre Dame didn't develop him into being a playmaker. He stepped on the field as a playmaker. Golden Tate stepped on the field as a playmaker. As you need those guys. Dude, that's what makes Tua was a playmaker when he got to Alabama. Sure. That's the only way you put him in a national championship game in the second half. Heck, Jalen Hurts was a playmaker as a freshman. Like you just get Devontae Smith was a playmaker as a freshman. That's not development because they weren't even fully developed, but they were playmakers. and you get those type of guys on the field. You give them opportunities to make plays. If you're a smart coach, you just get them on the field to be able to make plays. I will take playmakers over having to develop playmakers. That man, give me the playmakers. I believe Cam Williams is a playmaker. He's a playmaker.
Yeah.
I think Deuce Knight is a playmaker.
Well, Sean, I think you need a balance of it too, right? Like I think you need a balance of like that guy's a day one stud, right? And then you also develop the other guys, right? Like you can't go one way or the other, where it's like purely developmental guys and no high floor guys. Like you need a balance of those guys, right?
Isn't
like you need
that the process? Isn't that the process that they gave Coach Norvell at Florida State? He did that. He turned it around. And he got guys that he developed into playmakers. But when he wanted to win a national championship, he went and got dudes that were already playmakers. Because what you're seeing Keon Coleman do this year, go watch the Michigan State game last year. He made the Michigan defensive backs look silly at Michigan State in the first half. Like, so I already knew when he transferred, I'm like, oh, it's lit. It's lit. Because I saw what he did at Michigan State. Like, it's lit. That is what you need at Notre Dame. Difference makers that are playmakers. Notre Dame already has developed. Riley Mills is a developed playmaker. Howard Cross is a developed playmaker. Xavier Watts is a developed playmaker. You know who's a playmaker from the moment he got to Notre Dame? Jadarian Price, Jeremiah Love, day ones. Now, if we can get some at wide receiver and get some at quarterback, now we're cooking with grease, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But the balance, like you said, that's why you recruit, right? That's why you have coaches. That's why you recruit, right? The Hulak kid we just talked about, he's going to have to be developed. He's not Kingston. Kingston.
Yeah,
your expectation is that Kingston is going to come in and be a dude, a playmaker.
Sean, there was one other question I wanted to answer, but we're out of here, sir. You know why? I have people in the chat now telling me that Nick Saban's not a great coach. That's a conversation that's happening in the chat right now. So we're going to end the podcast there, folks, because I am not moving forward with that anymore. Oh, it's happening. Yeah. Yeah. Apparently I'm also not allowed to be a judge of whether Nick Saban's a good coach or not, because I haven't been coached by Nick Saban. Okay.
They weren't.
Anyway.
They're not serious.
Thank you so much for joining the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour here on the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Before you go, if you could hit that like button for me, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit a 5-star review if you're listening to us on any of your favorite podcast platforms. We will talk to you all very soon again. No game this week, but we'll be back with a lot of great info and great intel. Make sure to sign up at boards.irishbreakdown.com. And we'll talk to you guys very soon again here on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.